Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Neglected Naruto learns every beast sage mode. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by vecus saravan and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Discoveries and realizations. Frustration, that's what he was feeling at the moment, frustration. Naruto had left Konoha with Pervy Sage on a training trip about 2 weeks ago. He could still remember just how excited he was at the thought of 3 years of nothing but serious training and learning killer jutsu. He would definitely be a step closer to being Hokage after this. Hell, Granny Tsunade would probably even give him hat seeing as how strong he had gotten in such a short period of time. But boy was he disappointed. They had done nothing so far but waste time on Jiraiya's perverted books and so-called research. Naruto had asked for a scroll of some jutsu he could work on, but the Sannin just insisted that he continue to work on his chakra control. Naruto was really losing patience, and the fact that it took 2 weeks to get to this point was quite something for anyone that knew him. He looked at his master who was walking at such a slow leisurely pace with a carefree look on his face. The spiky blonde boy grit his teeth at that. How was he going to get strong enough to bring Sasuke back or even be Hokage for that matter if he wasn't being trained? How was he even going to impress Akure-chan or defeat those Akatsuki bastards if he was still weak? He was supposed to be getting stronger at the moment, not waste his time escorting his sensei to peep on naked unsuspecting women. He didn't doubt for a second that Sasuke team was probably getting way stronger him now. Finally, his frustration of the better of him, you know what? I can't take this anymore. Hey Pervy Sage, what's the big idea? Why the hell aren't we training already? He shouted, his tone dripping with agitation and righteous fury. The Toad Sannin stopped walking, looked back at the aggravated boy and responded. You are not ready. And then continued walking without a care in the world. The Jinchuriki pulled his hair in frustration. What the hell do you mean I'm not ready, you damn perv? If I wasn't ready, then why did you take me with you in the first place? Honestly, he would have made better progress with Kakashi-sensei at this stage. Well, that was if he was in the mood to teach. Damn, he has some really lazy teachers. Jiraiya abruptly stopped walking and looked back at him with a serious look on his face. A good 5 minutes passed with nothing but awkward silence accompanying it. Naruto was beginning to feel creeped out by the Sannin's piercing gaze and so asked. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Sit down, Naruto. Why do you want me to? Sit down. The Toad Sage said those words with the commanding power Naruto had rarely heard from him and thus felt doing as told without any questions was the right way to go. Jiraiya sat across from him with his hands folded and a serious look plastered on his face. He looked at his ignorant godson and sighed. Naruto, when I say you are not ready, I don't mean physically, I am talking about mentally. I don't think you're mentally ready to be trained seriously, Naruto. He said in a firm tone. The Jinchuriki looked at him with curiosity. What do you mean I am not ready mentally, Iro-senin? He asked. Naruto, you are so obsessed with wanting to live in this imaginary world of black and white where everything is just as simple as it looks, you don't take time to think about what the reality is. You constantly ignore things that are right in front of in search of your own fantasies, and that's something I am not going to tolerate from any apprentice of mine. The Sannin explained. Seeing the blonde's confused look still on his face, the Toad Sage decided to elaborate further. Alright, let's talk about your teammates for a minute, starting with your precious Sasuke-chan. When he saw the young boy adopt an apprehensive look, Jiraiya couldn't help but sigh again. This boy and his bonds, he thought. Tell me, why do you want to get back so much? Well, because 1. He's my friend, 2. I promised Sakura-chan that I would in 3. He's lost and he needs someone to bring him back to the good side, the blue-eyed blonde quickly responded with conviction. Do you think he ever felt the same towards you and your other teammate? Of course he does. Oh really? You once told me that you wanted to surpass Sasuke because he always said that you were the dead last and thus would get in his way, right? Jiraiya asked, and when he saw the younger boy nodding his head in confirmation, continued. So Sasuke didn't like you when you were strong, but when showed progress and growth, he challenged you to a fight to put you down and in your rightful place as dead last. That's not exactly what happened. Why did he leave? He felt he wasn't getting stronger in the Hidden Leaf and that Orochimaru team offered him the power that he craved. Not getting stronger? Jiraiya questioned, stroking his chin with a bit of wonder and curiosity on his face. Did you know that the Chidori is one of the most powerful ranked jutsu in the elemental nations, an assassination jutsu capable of destroying an opponent with one perfect shot? The Toad Sage asked the boy. Yeah, I know just how powerful it is, the Jinchuriki said, holding his chest. He still remembers just how it felt to have the lightning jutsu drove into his chest, sometimes he even dreamt about it. And I hear he was taught many fire jutsu, as well as having a fully matured Sharingan, right? Yes. Are you seriously telling me that having all those jutsu in his arsenal plus more in just the space of 6 months did not make Sasuke one of the most powerful if not the most powerful genin in the elemental nations? Asked the Sannin. Well, he wants to be strong enough to defeat his brother. And Orochimaru is going to train him so well that he will be able to defeat an S-rank shinobi within the space of 6 months. Damn it, Sannin, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. You claim this person is your friend and that he is just lost, but look at the facts, Naruto. Everything points to the contrary, said Jiraiya in a serious tone. He doesn't like you when you are weak, but then resents your growth. Nobody in the village told Sasuke not to chase after his revenge, or even refused to train him for it, but for some reason he decided that there was no value in staying with those that cared about him and would help him achieve his goals. He went and offered himself to a very dangerous criminal that is known for performing disgusting experiments on helpless people. How sure are you that he won't follow the same footsteps? Hey. Sennin, I get that you don't like Sasuke very much, but that doesn't give you the right to compare him to the likes of Orochimaru. Sasuke is different, yes he is obsessed with revenge, but he is not going to hurt helpless people just because of it. You don't know, we were trained together and even fought together, so I know that Sasuke is not going to turn into some demented freak, okay, the blonde Jinchuriki said, angrily defending his friend while glaring at his teacher. How dare Jiraiya say such things about Sasuke? He wasn't perfect, yes, but that didn't mean he was a bad person. He honestly didn't like where this conversation was going. The Toad Sage gave a humorless chuckle. He was really amused at this kid's stupidity sometimes. He definitely didn't get his intelligence from Minato, that much was certain. Naruto, I was Orochimaru's teammate. I fought with him, fought against him, we played together, trained together, ate together. If anything, the third preferred Orochimaru as a student more than Tsunade, and Orochimaru was the third's prized student, he told his clueless student. The blue-eyed Jinchuriki's eyes went wide at hearing that. That was the last thing he was expecting to hear. Oji-san preferred to train Oro team. That's just like Kakashi and Sasuke. So you finally understand now. Orochimaru was my best friend, Naruto. Never in my life did I imagine that he would turn out the way he did. So even though you don't want to hear this, I will tell you because you need to hear this. He moved closer and put his right hand on Naruto's shoulder. Sasuke put a Chidori in your chest, Naruto, and you and I both know that if it wasn't for the Kyuubi, he would have killed you multiple times in that battle. You, his so-called best friend, he was willing to kill just because you got in the way of his revenge. What do you think he'll do to a complete stranger he does not care about just for his revenge? He said, looking straight at the boy. Naruto looked down, though unable to find a way to defend his friend. Would Sasuke really turn out like Orochimaru? He didn't want to believe such things, but how could I ever be Hokage if I can't even save a friend? Naruto asked his master. Have you ever been at the shinobi cemetery? Yeah. Do you know how most of those shinobi died? On missions, Kakashi-sensei says they are part of a group labeled Kia, which stands for Killed in Action, he responded. Well, the Hokage is the one that sent them all on those missions, Naruto. Sometimes they knew that the chances of survival were minimal, and some of those people were friends, relatives or even neighbors of the Hokage, but they did it anyway. Being Hokage doesn't mean that you can save or protect everybody, Naruto. If that's what you think, then you better get used to disappointments because it's not possible, explained the legendary shinobi. The younger shinobi continued to look down while thinking about what he has been told. He didn't think his desire to save would be tested like this before. What was he supposed to do now? He didn't think he was capable of abandoning his brother to the wolves, but isn't this what Sasuke wanted? Look, Naruto, I'm not telling to give up on saving your friend, all I'm saying is that you should be careful with the people you want to associate with. Just because he's your first friend doesn't mean he's a good person, trust me, I should know. So then what am I supposed to do, Sennin? Asked the boy for the first time in his life, doubting his own conviction. Truth be told, that's your choice to make, Naruto. I just don't want you to make a choice simply because you choose to be blind yourself to certain things. My advice. Think about it long and hard, replied the white-haired man. Okay. Good, now let's talk about your other teammate. Naruto visibly flinched at hearing that. Was he going to get another slap to the face by reality? She's the one you claim to love, right? Asked Jiraiya with an amused look. Hey, I don't claim to love her, I do love Sakura-chan, responded the Jinchuriki with an offended look. Jiraiya face-palmed his forehead, remembering the scene all too well. Ah, young love, so simple, so naive, so stupid. Really? Why do you love Sakura-chan then? Asked the Toad Sage with his arms folded. Naruto gave his customary smile at that question, finally something he could easily respond to. He brought his hand up, showing Jiraiya all 5 fingers, and then started picking them out as he gave a reason. 1. She's smart, 2. She's cute, 3. She's stronger, scratch that, 3. She's competitive, 4. She's damn it, I just love her, okay. Jiraiya laughed at his godson, earning a mean glare from him. Damn, this scene was all too familiar. He has had this kind of conversation with his sensei Hiruzen Sarutobi way too many times. Okay, so there's no concrete reason, you just love her, but let me ask you this. Do you really think she is right for you, Naruto? He asked his really dense student. Of course I do, I mean I know she has a thing for Sasuke at the moment, but I will make her fall in love with me someday, responded the Jinchuriki with his confidence back in full force. It's nice that you're confident about that, but that's not what I asked. It's easy to fall in love, Naruto, but that doesn't mean the person you love is right for you. I've seen the way she treats you and interacts with you most of the time, and truth be told, that's not someone who is interested in you at all, said the Sannin sagely. Naruto was deflated once again at hearing that. Damn, what was wrong with this day? Usually he would dispute anyone challenging his beliefs and capabilities, but this time felt different. Could it be that his subconscious already knew this, but he simply decided to ignore it? Naruto, nobody is telling you give up on your love. If you feel that your love is real and it's strong enough to handle all the heartbreaks and rejections, then by all means. Go for it. I know I have. I just don't want you to miss a great opportunity with a great girl that really loves you. You deserve to be happy, the self-proclaimed super pervert said, trying to cheer up the boy while also giving him some good advice. Naruto stayed quiet, looking like he was contemplating saying something, but showing a saddened expression that was quite rare. But after a minute of complete silence, he finally decided to voice his thoughts. What if nobody will ever love me that way, Iro-senin? What then? Asked a Jinchuriki. He was really dreading the idea of living alone all his life with no wife or children. He had spent countless hours thinking about what the future would be like for him. With his situation in the village, it was quite possible that no girl would give him a chance. That was one of the biggest reasons he was fighting so hard to be acknowledged. It wasn't just so that he could be Hokage, but to also give himself a chance for a better future. Jiraiya hit a wince when he heard just how discouraged his student was. Were this the kid's thoughts when he wasn't putting up a mask or when he was alone? Villagers really did a number on his self-esteem. He had never felt more ashamed for abandoning than he did at that moment. Don't think about depressing stuff like that, Naruto. I'm sure there is girl out there who loves or will love you with all their heart. Naruto snorted at that, finding that highly unlikely. Oh yeah? Like who? I don't know, tell me about all the girls that you know very well. Okay. Well, there's Sakura-chan, who we've already spoken about, there's Tenten, but I don't know her very well, Ino, who is really annoying and very shallow, and Hinata, who is quite weird. She's really shy and likes to faint when I'm near her. I think she's sick or something. Oh, and she also adopted my Nindo and even encouraged me to beat her cousin at the Chunin exams, so that's pretty cool. Plus sometimes I think she follows me around when she thinks I'm not paying attention. Really weird, replied the coolest dumb blonde. 00. What? Why are looking at me like that? Jiraiya merely slapped his forehead again in exasperation. God, this kid is dense. Hinata was too, but never this dense. So let me get this straight. This Hinata faints only when around you, never around other boys. Naruto nods. She adopted your Nindo? Nods again. Gave you the confidence to beat her own cousin? Another nod. And likes to follow you around? He nodded again, still clueless. Jiraiya mumbled something about dense clueless blondes and said, tell me something, when you take all those facts and really think about them, what sort of conclusion do you come up with on Hinata? I don't really think about it, Naruto said the gallant in a firm tone. Naruto had no idea what his sensei was going on about, but it didn't hurt to try and think about it. Okay, so Hinata is a pretty shy girl, everybody knows that. She is able to talk with almost everybody except him. She stutters a lot and faints when he's around. Still weird, but why him though? Why not Sasuke? Wait a minute, in the academy when there was a rumor going around that Sasuke liked girls with long hair, Hinata kept hers short. She never tried to get Sasuke's attention like every other girl, but that didn't mean much. It could be that she was too shy to talk to him. But then again, she always seemed to pay more attention to him, and she never laughed at him when he failed to execute a jutsu. She likes to blush a lot and even tried to help him cheat during the Chunin exams. She adopted his own personal Nindo and even encouraged him before the Chunin exams when she should have been rooting for the other side. What about all those times on missions when she? After about 5 minutes of the blonde really thinking hard about something, probably for the first time in his life, he jerked like he just discovered something huge. Hinata likes me? What the hell? But how is that even possible? How did I not even notice that? Wait a minute, does that mean that she has loved me since the academy? He exclaimed in his usually high voice, unable to believe it. Probably. The boy eyed his master, trying to find any sort of falsehood, but instead found nothing but sincerity. He abruptly stood up, grabbed his backpack and started off towards in the direction of Konoha, shouting, I have to get to the bottom of this. Though he never got far because Jiraiya grabbed him by the head and turned him around saying, oh yeah? And what are you going to say to Hinata when she confirms it, I wonder? I will. It's just that first I discover that my best friend is a potential criminal, then it turns out that the girl I've thought I was in love with is bad for me, and now this. If I miss things that are so obvious, then what else did I miss that was important, replied the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, feeling frustrated with himself. He knew that he was never the sharpest kunai in the pouch. This was even annoying the hell out of him. How was possible to be so damn stupid and blind? Well, you missed the fact that you come from a prestigious clan, a Kage Bushin transfers its memories to the original, allowing you to pick up things faster, and you're the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Jiraiya said, wanting to just say them all at the same time and get it over with. Having fully absorbed what his sensei was telling him, Naruto looked at his teacher with tears almost coming out of his eyes. He looked heartbroken, almost as if he had just heard that someone he cared had just died. The blonde-head had never looked so downhearted before. Everything his teacher had just talked to him about has been right in front of him, but he was just too stupid to notice a damn thing. Am I really that stupid? He asked in an almost broken voice. He honestly didn't feel so confident in himself anymore. No wonder everybody calls him an idiot. He is one. How could he be so blind, so dense, so stupid? This time tears did start falling out of his eyes. He has so fixated with his own illusions that he missed the simple fact standing right in front of him. What kind of shinobi was he? What kind of person was he? What kind of Hokage would he be? Did he even deserve to be Hokage? He honestly didn't even know anymore. Jiraiya looked at his godson, getting more dispirited at the minute. He put his hand on the Jinchuriki's shoulder once again and said, "No, you are not stupid, Naruto, you." "Yes, I am," barked Naruto, interrupting him. He roughly pushed Jiraiya's hand away from his shoulder. "I was the dead last at the academy. Everyone calls me a knucklehead or just an idiot. I'm so dense that I miss the simple things and weak. Call me I'm weak," he continued, his tears freely flowing at this point. "Naruto, calm down. Oh please, you and I both know it. Every fight that I have been in, I would have lost or worse died if it wasn't for the Kyuubi. Haku, Neji, Gaara and Sasuke, all of them could have killed me if it wasn't for this damn fox in my gut," Naruto said, laughing sarcastically at the end and running his hands through his hair. "And to think that I have been so cocky about being so strong and being Hokage one day. Haha, I'm nowhere near as strong as I think I am," he continued. "Naruto, I know you're disappointed in yourself, but you have to understand that." "Ha. Disappointed? I'm a fucking joke, Jiraiya, at dead last. M.A. Naruto, enough. Look, I know it's not easy finding out important things about your life like this, especially when they were all right in front of you, but you have to understand that not all of it is your fault. A lot of people, myself included, played a part in what you're going through. We could have at least tried to talk to you about these things, but we didn't. But trust me, the worst thing you can do in life is looking at the past with resentment and regrets. Instead of whining about it, why don't you think about what you are going to do now that you are no longer ignorant? Focus on the present and future, not the past," Naruto advised the older, more experienced shinobi. "Okay," Naruto replied, although he didn't sound so convinced. "Look, take some time to think about all the things we've talked about, and when your mind is clear, we can start your real training," Jiraiya ordered, standing up. "There's a small town nearby, let's hurry up so that we can find a motel to sleep," he said, already jumping on trees. A few days later, motel room. The last couple of days has been very weird for Jiraiya, not that he was too surprised by it, but Naruto had been very quiet ever since their talk. The blonde mostly kept to himself, only speaking when spoken to. Introspective would be a better way to describe at the moment, a word he never thought he would ever associate with his hyperactive student. The Sannin had given the boy a couple of books to read, and he didn't complain or give any sort of childish tantrum, he simply did as told. He shouldn't be surprised though, Naruto had a knack for doing the unexpected and completely surprise his doubters. The Toad Sage was just glad that the boy was not looking down on himself. Of course his self-esteem was still low, but the Jinchuriki was at least trying to curb his ignorance to the ground. It was for this reason that Jiraiya had every bit of confidence that it wouldn't take long for his usual confidence to return, perhaps it would even be real confidence and not some mask. "Hey Iro Sennin, can I ask you something?" Naruto said, sparking a conversation for the first time in days whilst looking at the older man. "You're never going to stop calling me that, are you?" asked Jiraiya with mock anger. When the younger continued to look at him with a blank look on his face, the Sannin deflated, mumbling something about disrespectful brats. "Sure, ask away. A few days ago you said that I belonged to a prestigious clan. I didn't ask about it then, but now I want to know. Which clan are you talking about?" the blonde asked curiously. "Already paying attention to the important conversations, huh? Well, good for you, you're learning." Naruto gave a small smile for the praise. "Well, you see. The spiral symbol on the back of your clothes and Konoha shinobi uniforms is the symbol of the Uzumaki clan. A powerful peace-loving clan that excelled in the sealing arts and also possessed strong chakra and even stronger life force. They were the only clan in the elemental nations that had their own village, the village hidden in the whirlpools, and they were Konoha's closest ally, that's why we wear their symbol on our backs, to honor their memory, the Sannin explained. Well, what happened to them? How come I've never heard anyone speaking about them? Unfortunately, in this world, while strength is respected, it's also feared. The Uzumaki's prowess in Fuinjutsu made them really dangerous, and a lot of villages felt threatened by them, so they banded together and attacked them and completely destroyed in the Second Shinobi War. Naruto couldn't help but frown at that news. What kind of people would attack someone simply because they were stronger than you are? Why not just train yourself to be stronger instead? This line of thought brought Sasuke back to his mind. The Uchiha had tried to do the same with him. The minute he showed an increase in strength, Sasuke felt jealous of him and even tried to put him back down. Sasuke could have easily trained harder to reassert himself as the strongest genin on Team 7, but he didn't. Perhaps he didn't want to be stronger him, maybe he wanted Naruto to be weaker instead. He still felt the need to save the Uchiha from himself, but still, he couldn't but wonder if it was even worth it. He was going to deal with the Sasuke issue, that's for sure. Listen Gaki, I'm sorry that you lost your clan before you even got to meet them, but this should teach you just how cruel the shinobi world really is. Villages do not care about how righteous you are, they only care about strength and how much of it you have. Shinobi villages, especially the Big Five, don't like the idea of any small village rivaling their dominance in the elemental nations. But they did nothing wrong to them, how can anybody be that cruel? How can anyone wish to destroy an entire village simply because they're good at something, the Jinchuriki said with anger, unable to wrap his head around what he has just heard. That's how it is, sad but true. That's why you need to learn Naruto, you say you want to be Hokage, right? Then you need to understand this world and how it works if you're going to make any positive difference, the Sannin advised wisely. Naruto looked his master for a few seconds, looking like he was contemplating asking him something. It seemed that look did not go unnoticed by Jiraiya as he asked. What is it? Do you really think I can do it, Hokage? I mean, do you really think I can be Hokage? The young blonde asked with a bit of hesitation and self-doubt in his voice. Jiraiya looked at his godson with a straight face, but inside he couldn't help but feel worried for him. This wasn't like Naruto. Usually if you castigate him for something, he would just shrug it off and swear to do better next time. But this time was different, it was as if he had just discovered that he was living a lie, maybe in some ways he was. Yes, I think you all the capabilities in the world to be Hokage someday, he answered truthfully. Naruto gave a small smile at him, his heart felt warm due to relief and happiness. This was the first time anybody actually openly believed in him to be Hokage. Sure, he has had some people encourage him to do something, but this was actually the first time anybody has said they believed in his dream. He put his hand right where on his heart, still smiling, a genuine smile, and looked at his teacher. Thank you, Jiraiya. The legendary shinobi responded with a smile of his own. No problem, Gaki. You know, this past couple of days I've been thinking a lot about a lot of things and I realized. The only reason I wanted to be Hokage in the first place was so that everybody could love and accept me. When I was young, I always saw how everybody in the village talked to, praised and even worshipped Oji-san, and therefore I decided that I wanted the same. I thought being Hokage would get me the same treatment, the blonde said, giving a bitter smile thinking about his idiocy. You know, other than protecting the village, I have no idea just what the Hokage does, he finished. What about now? I don't know. I guess I just need some more time to think about my life, you know. I want to make sure that what I decide to do in the future is not just because I want to find my own self-worth, he replied. Good, you have your whole life ahead of you, take all the time you need. Just remember that I'm here for you for whatever you need. The spiky blonde nodded in response. Hey, I just realized that you said that my clan had its own village and was destroyed way before I was born, then how did I end up in Konoha? Naruto asked, hoping it would finally reveal something about his parents. At that, Jiraiya's demeanor changed to nervousness all of a sudden. He knew where this kind of conversation was going, in fact he had been dreading it ever since he met the kid. Well, you see, since the Uzumaki clan were allies of the Hidden Leaf, they helped each other in everything. War, medical ninjutsu, seals, business and even, Jinchuriki. What? The first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Mito Uzumaki, the wife of the Shodaime, was getting old. It was only a matter of time before she would eventually die, so the Kyuubi needed a new host, or it would have broken free. Since the Uzumaki possessed strong life force and even stronger chakra, the clan had accepted Konoha's request for a new container and sent his daughter right before the war broke out. She was made the new Jinchuriki and then later on in her got married and had you, the Toad Sage explained. So you know who they are? My parents, I mean. You know who my parents are? Naruto asked. Yeah, I know who they are. Jiraiya responded, scratching his head in the process. Well, who are they? The Jinchuriki asked with uncontainable excitement in his voice. The self-proclaimed super pervert laughed nervously, not knowing how his godson will react to his response. Haha Minato Kushina Uzumaki. What? I didn't hear you. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, a very beautiful I just realized, you have some insane pedigree. Jiraiya. The white-haired man sighed, he might as well get it over with. Your mother is Kushina Uzumaki, a very beautiful, very wild hurricane. Honestly that woman was as scary as she was beautiful. Anyway, your father is someone you know very well, someone the entire elemental nations knew and feared. He's a war hero and he was also my student, a student I loved like a son, Minato Namikaze he finally said. Naruto's eyes widened at this, what the hell? Minato is. Are you telling that my father is the Yondaime? Yeah. What? He really believed it, how could it be possible? The Yondaime was the most famous shinobi in the world, a village hero, the Yondaime is the shinobi. But what the fuck? How many people know about this? Naruto asked with a piercing look at his teacher. Naruto. How many? Sensei, Tsunade, the council, Kakashi, possibly more. So you all knew but not a single person wanted to tell me? The Jinchuriki asked with so much venom in his voice, in fact he was so angry that his eyes had now turned to slits. Naruto calm down. Fuck that, you bastards knew who I was, who my parents are all along, but just decided to ignore it and pretend like you don't know anything. The Jinchuriki angrily shouted his teeth, nails and whiskers becoming more elongated and sprouting a single tail of the Kyuubi's chakra in the process. Naruto, calm down, Jiraiya said walking towards the boy with a restraining seal on his hand. For so long I have wanted to know who gave birth to me, which family I belonged to, anything at all that gave me an identity, anything that didn't make me feel so damn alone, and it turns out everyone else knew all along. You all knew who I was but decided not to tell me. You were laughing and smiling at me, but behind my back you were spitting at me and laughing at me. Barked the blonde going on all fours, bloodlust leaking out of him. Naruto, you have to listen too. I'm gonna kill you. The Jinchuriki shouted lunging at his godfather. Fortunately, the Sannin was prepared for this as he quickly dodged his student's onslaught and then quickly shunshined next to him and slapped the restraining seal on his forehead. Naruto tried to take the seal off, but Jiraiya was already holding firmly on the motel floor while the seal did its job. This struggle lasted for about a minute until all the Kyuubi's chakra was absorbed by the seal. Naruto, I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but you have to understand. We did it for your own good. Your father had too many enemies, if anyone would have found out who you were, you would have been killed long ago Jiraiya said, trying to calm down his student. Great, that explains why you didn't tell everyone else. I'm more concerned about why you didn't tell me. You didn't trust me, you all kept me in the dark about my mother, father, clan and heritage, simply because you all didn't trust me. Jiraiya gave his wayward godson a deadpan look responding in the same vein. Really, are you really surprised? I'm not trying to offend you, but you are not really the quietest person in the world Naruto, plus you have been trying to get the village's attention since you were 5, are you seriously trying to tell me that you wouldn't have told them about your relationship with Minato during your many attention-seeking activities? Naruto kept quiet, chose not to respond, as much as he hated admitting it, he knew that Jiraiya had a point, he wouldn't have wasted any time telling people that Minato was his father. He would have probably stood atop the Hokage monument and shouted it at the top of his lungs. The white-haired Sannin sighed looking at his godson, man this kid's life was so fucked up. If the circumstances were different, nothing would have been kept from you, trust me, Minato knew what he was doing when he made the decision to make you a Jinchuriki. But when he did it, he hoped that you would be seen as a hero, a jailer of the Bijuu that had almost destroyed the village. Naruto snorted and responded sarcastically with a bit of bitterness in his voice, and we know just how well that turned out, what a genius. Jiraiya hit a wince, he couldn't say he was surprised by the resentment he could see on his student's face. Even though he didn't intend for it to happen this way, Minato was the one who got all the praise and adoration, while his son got the short end of the stick. Man, this is going to be a long couple of days. Can you take me there? Where my mother was born, I want to see it, the blonde Jinchuriki said to Jiraiya bringing out of his thoughts. The Sannin responded with a big smile, thankful for the change in subject. Sure thing Gaki, we'll start off early tomorrow, this little village has some really blessed and talented babes. I want to do some more research tonight said the super pervert with a lecherous grin. Naruto gave his master a disgusted look, I hope one of them gives you syphilis and herpes. They can try. As Jiraiya was about to go out of the room, the Jinchuriki stopped him, showing a face that said that he wanted to ask something really important. What is it Gaki? One last thing before you go. Why did you choose to train me? I mean, I know you trained my father and all, but that doesn't necessarily mean you are obligated to train me as well. So why are you really training me Jiraiya? asked a cerulean blue-eyed boy with curiosity on his face. Oh fuck. Jiraiya suddenly found himself in the same situation he was in just a few minutes ago. This kid is going to surely kill him this time. Well, at least he couldn't say that he didn't deserve it. Do you remember when I said that I loved Minato like a son? The Toad Sage asked with nervousness and a bit of fear in his tone. The Jinchuriki nodded and he continued. Well, it turns Minato and Kushina reciprocated those feelings because when they were expecting you, they named me your godfather. What? End chapter. Chapter 2. So this was his ancestral home. The place where his mother, grandparents, cousins, uncles, his entire clan lived. His body trembled slightly as he took a few steps away from Jiraiya. At this point, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki hadn't even registered his presence. He was simply overwhelmed with emotions at seeing what was left of his clan's home. It seems going to Konoha had saved his mother's life. Naruto couldn't help but imagine what it could have been like if he grew up in this place, the place where he wouldn't be an outsider, an outcaster at Demon Brat as some would call him. A place where he wouldn't have been looked at with hateful eyes. There was nothing now. Just ruins. Jealousy and fear had driven some people to ruin this beautiful home of his. How cruel people could be. How are you feeling? Jiraiya asked quietly, even though he already had a good idea what must have been going through the young boy's mind. I feel lost, Naruto answered simply. My father was a Hokage, my mother was the Uzumaki clan head's daughter, my clan was the sister clan of the Senju, which means I was distantly related to 4 of the past 5 Hokage, the other Hokage treated me like one of his grandsons, my godfather is a Sannin, my Jounin sensei is Kakashi the copy ninja, and my teammate was one of the last Itachi. With all these ties, anyone else would be living the life of some noble prince, but somehow with me Naruto spoke. He looked his godfather and continued. My parents are dead, my clan was slaughtered, our home left in ruins, the village that they served despises me, my godfather abandoned me, my friend put a chidori through my chest, and everyone else knows so many important things about me, but were more than happy to keep quiet and preferred to watch from a distance as I suffered. Jiraiya looked away from his student not knowing what to say, everything that Naruto was saying was true, and it gave him great shame to admit that. He could have easily given him a happier childhood free of loneliness, depression and scorn. But he didn't. His cowardice prevented Naruto from getting everything he deserved. Kushina and Minato must have been rolling in the graves with anger and hatred. The Toad Sannin looked away from his student with deep regret and shame in his heart. He wasn't fit to call himself the boy's godfather. But do you know what the worst part of all this is? The Jinchuriki asked his master, not really expecting an answer. All my life I've been living a lie, and I think most of it has been my fault. I've spent my entire life trying to gain people's love and affection so much that I've somehow managed to delude myself into living in some fantasy world. Maybe I've always hated the villagers of Konoha, maybe I've always held self-loathing, maybe I'm just another hateful human being. More hateful than Gaara ever was, maybe I've been like this all my life, and I have been running from the facts all along. I don't know who I am, Jiraiya, I'm lost. Naruto finished wiping away the tears from his eyes. A few minutes of silence passed with both master and student contemplating what Naruto had just said. Jiraiya sat down motioning to the young boy to do the same. The Sannin sighed and said. Listen, I cannot pretend to know or even understand your pain. Your childhood has given you more hardships and trials than anything I could ever imagine, and admittedly it was only made worse by my absence, but like you have done so much in your life, you have look at the positives here. Naruto scoffed and asked, skepticism bleeding in his tone. Really? Well then do tell me what positives I have going for me at the moment. Well, first of all, you don't have much to lose at the moment. Any person in this situation sooner or later realizes that they have everything to gain. The world is at your feet, Naruto. Your dreams, your clan's former glory, your love and so much more, all those things are right in front of you, and it is up to you to decide which path you want to take. And secondly, you may not have had anyone in the past, but now I'm here for you, Naruto, and I swear on everything I hold dear that this time I will not abandon you, Jiraiya responded, finishing his sentence in a firm tone. The young Jinchuriki looked at his master in the eyes, trying to find some sort of deception in his words, but the older man did not waver. After about a minute of the staring contest, the Jinchuriki finally gave him a small genuine smile which was returned. Naruto then took his gaze to the destroyed buildings and temples. He took a few steps towards a broken wall with Uzumaki insignia on it, and he put his hand on it, trying to clean out the dust that had accumulated on it. His clan, his family, his village, his heritage, his home, his identity. You know, I do not know if I truly want to become Hokage or not, or even if trying to get Sasuke back is worth it or not, but this, Naruto said, pointing at his clan's emblem. I will fight for this, my clan, my fallen family, my heritage. I will fight for it, and I will make sure that the Uzumaki name is great again, he finished with fire and determination in both his tone and expression. The young Uzumaki felt his sensei's hand on his shoulder and a whisper close to his ear, saying you have to be strong in order to accomplish that. Don't you worry Iro-senin, by the time we are done with this training trip I'll be beating your ass black and blue and I won't even need the Kyuubi for that. Scoff, as if. Oh yeah. Just watch me you old perv, my old man will be wishing he was me from the grave. 1 week later. Alright Naruto, before we start with the training, we need to first address your strengths and weaknesses, Jiraiya said as he stopped walking and sat down on grass. They had finally found a good clearing to start with the young Jinchuriki's training. Firstly, your weaknesses. Your Taijutsu is average at best, I've seen your fight a couple of times, and I've noticed that you usually fight like a brawler, your opponents easily overwhelm you in Taijutsu, so you use the Kage Bushin to try to retaliate and cover your area of weakness. Your ninjutsu is excellent for a genin, but the way you use it is what bothers me. You haven't fully mastered the Rasengan, you misuse the Kage Bushin, and you have never bothered to summon the toads to help with your training. You have no knowledge of Jinjutsu to speak of, Fuinjutsu is basically non-existent, you completely miss the basics, and your chakra control completely sucks. The Sannin said seriously and Naruto frowned at that, he didn't expect to have so many weaknesses. As for strengths. Your unpredictability is a huge strength to have as a shinobi, and thankfully you have that in abundance, you have more than enough chakra and stamina even without the Kyuubi, and you have the unique ability to talk your enemies out of their emo-ness. He finished with a smile. Great, so my greatest strengths are that I'm a walking battery that never shuts up, said Naruto with frustration and annoyance. If you want to look at it that way then yeah. Naruto groaned at his master's response, this was going to be harder than he expected. Yes, we have a lot of things to cover then. Yep, you still remember what I told you about the Kage Bushin? Yeah, I do. I even checked it out. Good, then make about 200 clones so that we can get started. Naruto was all too happy to comply, he was finally getting the training he had wanted ever since he become a shinobi. Alright, separate them in 2 groups. Jiraiya waited for the Jinchuriki to complete his instructions before he also created 2 clones. Okay, so this group will work on chakra control, and other one will work on improving the ninjutsu you already have in your arsenal, you will have to master them and know how and when to properly use them before I teach you more ninjutsu. My clones will be there to watch over and give further instructions if need be, instructed Jiraiya. The real Naruto looked at his master and asked, what will I be doing? Make 5 more clones, you need to learn, have your clones study these books, Jiraiya said, taking out some books from a scroll. While your clones are busy with other things, you and I will work on your taijutsu and your calligraphy, he finished. Months later. Naruto dodged a punch to his face before jumping over a kick to his midsection from his opponent. His opponent rushed toward him once again, their long yet somehow spiky white hair billowing in the soft breeze. Entering his stance once more, he prepared to defend himself. His opponent threw a fist to his face which he dodged, following up on his attack with another kick to Naruto's gut, which the blonde blocked but was pushed backwards from the force of the kick, sticking to the surface of the water. The blonde skidded atop the surface of the water, creating a small wave-ish path as he disturbed the serene waters. He came to stop as a loose wall of water rose from behind him and he smacked softly into it. Regaining his bearings, he saw an axe kick descending toward him from his opponent, and the blonde rolled out of the way before attempting to take out his opponent's legs from under him, with low kick to his opponent's legs, which the man jumped over. Charging towards his opponent, a wave-ish trail of water rushing behind, he engaged him in a bout of taijutsu. The two were mere blurs to the naked eye as they clashed against one another, throwing punches and kicks in speeds that were impressive to look at. Naruto twisted his body in a 180 turning motion as he sent a roundhouse kick to his opponent which was blocked before following it up with another long kick which connected with his opponent's chest, albeit with the metal armor covering them, taking the brunt of the attack. His opponent responded with a knee to the gut and a kick to the face of the blonde which he blocked with both his arms. Leaping backwards to put some space between himself and his opponent, Naruto assessed the situation. Currently he and Jiraiya were sparring atop the water and the blonde was looking a little worse for wear. He was bruised, battered and starving, but the latter could wait, the weights he was wearing didn't help either as they made it difficult for him to move faster and restricted him. He was panting harshly, a river of sweat flowing down his face, showing the exercise was making him work up a sweat. It had been 5.5 months since his training with Jiraiya had begun, and it had only intensified by the day. With each day his perverted sensei would add a new obstacle or a crazy rule that would put him at a disadvantage or handicap him, like the one they were doing now for example. The man had decided to add weights to his clothing, and right now the blonde was fighting not only the redeed, but was fighting with every muscle fiber in his body to prevent himself from sinking into the cold water below him. This was another one of Jiraiya's self-created training exercises, where he had to stand and spar atop the water while wearing 150 pounds weighted metal plates all over his body. Although it was troublesome, the effects and results of this particular exercise were extraordinary and astonishing, and well worth the trouble. It not only improved his chakra control significantly, but went a long way toward increasing his speed, endurance, strength, and the blonde himself was quite pleased with how far he had come from just the basics of physical training. That though, didn't mean he neglected his studies, spiritual and cognitive training. No, he read every book and scroll he could get his hands on to improve his grammar and vocabulary, and Jiraiya also dedicated some of his time toward teaching him calligraphy, and the blonde recognized that the efficiency, control, calamity and elegance that went into the art calmed him down significantly. Naruto dodged his opponent's punch, retaliating with one of his own which connected with his opponent's face, and instead of having them reeling on the ground in pain, they simply puffed out of existence in a cloud of smoke. The blonde was praising the genius which had developed the jutsu, whether used by his opponent or not, he could not deny the fact was arguably the greatest jutsu ever created. Unlike the Bushin no jutsu which had been a bane of his existence in his short time in Konoha's academy, this jutsu favored high chakra usage and practically no chakra control at all. The former which he had in spades and the latter which he had impeccably improved in. His thoughts however were interrupted when Jiraiya appeared delivering a brutal axe kick on his shoulder though instead of wincing, he simply grinned and made a rat sign, super explosive clone jutsu he said going out with a huge explosion. As the real Naruto was heavily panting, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up inside him. He knew full well that the Jiraiya he had blown up was also a clone, and if the past few months were anything to go by, he was in for a world of hurt if he dropped his guard even for a bit. Ever since he had started this serious training 6 months ago, he had finally understood why Jiraiya was so feared and respected around the elemental nations. The Sannin did not allow Naruto to gain any false confidence in anything they did. He would tear down the Jinchuriki piece by piece, give him a brutal beatdown, and admonish him for making foolish mistakes. All in all, Naruto had finally understood that if Jiraiya was taking anything serious, mediocrity was not accepted. All of the sudden Naruto felt his feet being dragged down deep underwater. He tried to fight it off, but was given a brutal uppercut for his troubles, sending him flying upwards. He quickly formed a Rasengan in his right hand, knowing that Jiraiya would appear, just as he predicted the Sannin appeared above the Jinchuriki, and quickly caught the hand holding the air-rank jutsu. The man punched the boy in the stomach, brutally making him spit out some blood, then pummeled him to the ground. The power of the attack was enough to send Naruto crushing back into the water. That's enough for now, Jiraiya said with a small smile, obviously happy with his student's progress so far. 2 years later. Naruto jumped back avoiding Jiraiya's punch which crashed into the ground creating a small crater. Naruto dashed towards while the Sannin's fist was still planted on the ground. He swung his right foot attempting to land a kick on Jiraiya's face. Jiraiya sensed the attack and looked up. He positioned both his hands and blocked the kick. The kick had so much force that it pushed Jiraiya back and made him wince. Naruto continued his assault by raising his other foot. He swung it and attempted a roundhouse kick at his opponent. The kick came at Jiraiya with so much speed that he could not avoid it. His hands were still recovering from Naruto's previous kick. He only managed to bring out one hand to block the kick. It was not enough as the kick sent him flying. Naruto did not give Jiraiya time to recover as he appeared above him. He applied wind chakra to his fist preparing for a bone-cracking punch. He punched Jiraiya to his chest, sending him crashing down like a bullet. As soon as Jiraiya hit the ground with a loud crash, Naruto noticed that there was something wrong. Jiraiya was too powerful and experienced to be caught that easily. Jinjutsu? Naruto thought to himself. He held a single-hand seal, Kai. He muttered and dispelled the illusion. He sensed something from behind. Spinning around, Naruto saw Jiraiya dashing at him at fast speeds. Naruto could do nothing as Jiraiya's knee crashed into his gut. Jiraiya added to the assault with a powerful punch to Naruto's face. The punch sent Naruto in flight. Naruto recovered quickly before he hit something and flipped in midair. He landed on the ground in a crouched position before standing up and looking at Jiraiya impassively. It seems I'm still having some trouble with Ninjutsu if I was caught that easily. Naruto stated. Jiraiya nodded, you are getting good at detecting it though. He commented. It was indeed true, Naruto had become good at detecting his illusions. When they started training, Naruto did not have any skills at Jinjutsu. He could be caught in one for the whole day and still not be able to recognize that he had been caught in a Jinjutsu. Naruto said no word any further. There was no need for him to say anything, but he made a mental note to work on Jinjutsu later on. He got into his Taijutsu stance and prepared to face Jiraiya once again. Both opponents ran towards each other and clashed in between. Jiraiya attempted a high roundhouse kick at Naruto. Naruto saw the attack coming and crouched down, dogging Jiraiya's kick. He spun around and attempted a leg sweep on Jiraiya. Jiraiya was too experienced to be caught by something like that. Thus he jumped up to avoid Naruto's leg sweep. While still in flight, Jiraiya flashed through hand seals, gathering enough chakra for his jutsu. Fire style. Great Fireball. A large fireball expelled from Jiraiya's mouth and raced down at Naruto, who was still in a crouched position. The flames hit Naruto and consumed him before dying down. Jiraiya was on alert, knowing that something like that would not put Naruto down, despite him firing the jutsu at a close range. He was not disappointed as Naruto charged at him from behind. He quickly spun around to block a kick aimed at his head. Another Naruto appeared behind Jiraiya and threw a number of shurikens at the Sanin's back. The Naruto that had attempted to kick Jiraiya disappeared in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya realized that it had been just a distraction. He quickly used a replacement technique to avoid the shurikens that were of no doubt going to pierce his back. A log appeared in his place, taking the hits that were meant for him. Naruto narrowed his eyes, searching for his sensei. He did not have to wait long as a bundle of shurikens flew towards him at high speed. Naruto gathered the wind around him and mixed it with his own chakra. Wind release. Wind palm. Gusts of wind sped towards the shurikens. The two attacks met and Naruto's jutsu propelled the shurikens away from Naruto. The gusts of wind continued to make their way towards Jiraiya, who simply leaped away. Naruto went through a number of hand signs. As he did that, the wind around him turned into at least 20 wind shurikens that were spinning around him. Wind release. Wind shuriken. The wind shuriken sped at the unmoving form of Jiraiya. He knew that the shurikens were sharp and could leave a few gashes should they hit him. He had seen the attack before, and it would be nasty if he were to be hit. As soon as the wind shurikens got into touching distance with Jiraiya, he disappeared in a perfectly timed body flicker. Naruto cancelled his technique and looked to where Jiraiya had disappeared. Earth style. Instant earthquake. Naruto barely had the chance to defend himself when the ground he was standing on suddenly opened up and swallowed him whole, crushing him in the process. Jiraiya, seeing his student seemingly get crushed by the small earthquake, merely stretched his sensing abilities. The Sannin knew full well that attack could have easily killed any Jounin. His student was way too unpredictable and too resilient to allow himself to lose a battle like that. Jiraiya's thoughts were interrupted when he heard the blonde say. Earth style. Projection fish style jutsu. Naruto did his jutsu while he was underground and attempted to pull Jiraiya to the ground, but the Sannin reacted faster and jumped away, avoiding the jutsu. His relief was short-lived when the blonde appeared above him, holding a very, very dangerous jutsu that was making screeching noises. Wind style. Rasen shuriken, the blonde said, and threw the jutsu at Jiraiya. The Sannin's eyes widened in panic. For the first time in a long time, Jiraiya was actually afraid for his life. The Rasen shuriken was nothing to scoff at. He knew exactly the kind of damage that the jutsu was capable of. He had labeled it as an S-rank jutsu for a reason. In an act of desperation, the Toad Sage created a Rasengan of his own and quickly added his fire affinity to it. Fire style. Rasen infernal, he said, and quickly threw the burning jutsu at the Rasen shuriken, hoping that they will cancel each other out, though he quickly realized his mistake when he saw the two jutsu combine and therefore create the biggest fire he has ever seen in his life, barreling down on both student and master. Naruto went through several hand signs and then clasped his hands together and released a wave of chakra. Sealing art. Chakra barrier. Naruto muttered as a barrier erected around him. The barrier was orange, taking the color of Naruto's chakra. It did not cover a wide area, it did just enough to shield Naruto. The fire hit the barrier but was unable to break through the barrier. While Jiraiya used multiple body flickers to get away from the fire. Jiraiya sighed slightly with relief and was about to attack the blonde again when he sensed something on the ground about 5 meters away from him. It looked like a normal Rasengan, but it was glowing, so Jiraiya immediately recognized the jutsu. Shit, he had already planted the Rasen bomb, he thought, and quickly used another body flicker to escape before the jutsu exploded, leaving a huge crater on the ground. Jiraiya went through a set of hand seals, fire style. Dragon breath. He said, and then expelled a jet stream of hot and intense flames towards Naruto. The flames sped towards Naruto with amazing speed. Earth style. Mud wall, the blonde said, creating a huge wall that blocked the fire jutsu from reaching him and burning him alive. His celebrations were not long, however, because while he was still holding up the wall, Jiraiya appeared behind him holding an Adama Rasengan. Without looking back, Naruto quickly created a Seal-less clone that formed an Adama Rasengan of its own and clashed with Jiraiya's while he was still dealing with the fire. When the flames died down, Naruto deactivated his earth jutsu and charged at Jiraiya. They engaged in a fierce taijutsu battle that ignited sparks around the small training ground. Naruto was faster than Jiraiya, but Jiraiya had the power and the experience to predict Naruto's attack. This only made the battle even fierce than it had been, as none let their guard down. Punches and kicks were thrown at one another, which were each being either blocked or dodged. Well, that was before Jiraiya suddenly blurred out of sight and appeared behind Naruto and positioned a kunai on his neck. Jiraiya was alarmed when he felt a sudden rise of chakra from Naruto. The Naruto suddenly exploded to gusts of winds. The explosion caught Jiraiya, giving him multiple cuts on his front and sending him flying away. Jiraiya recovered quickly and flipped twice before landing on the ground on his feet. The moment he landed, he felt a spike of chakra from Naruto. The said blonde appeared in front of Jiraiya with a Rasengan on his right hand. Rasengan. Naruto yelled as he tried slamming the Rasengan on Jiraiya's gut. The Toad Sage was saved by his experience by leaping sideways from the attack. Naruto missed, and his Rasengan slammed the ground creating an explosion. The explosion was just a testimony to the power of the Rasengan. As the lifted debris cleared, a rather large crater was formed in the middle of the training ground, and Naruto was standing still in the middle of the crater, panting slightly. Jiraiya stood not far away from Naruto, his clothes tattered because of the explosive clone that hit him, but he was otherwise okay if not counting his slightly labored breathing. Despite it all, Jiraiya couldn't help but give a proud smile to his student. He had truly grown since they started their training. He had expected Naruto to be a powerhouse, but those expectations were blown to pieces every time he sparred with the blonde. In just 2.5 years, the blonde had gone from a weak, loud and obnoxious child to a warrior capable of going toe-to-toe with him, a Sannin. This definitely confirmed it. He was the greatest shinobi teacher of all time. Nobody, not Orochimaru or Sarutobi or Hashirama or even Tobirama, could claim to be better than him at this. I mean, sure Sarutobi had taught the 3 Sannin, but he taught a Rinnegan wielder, the Yellow Flash and another S-rank shinobi in the making. He would bet anything that Naruto would not only surpass his father, but he would also achieve more for the world than anyone would even imagine. Alright Naruto, that's enough for now. The Toad Sage said walking towards the blonde. When he was within an arm's length of the boy, he put his hand on the boy's shoulder and gave him a warm proud smile. I'm proud of you. A week later, Mount Myaboku. So this is where all the toads live? Naruto asked looking around with fascination. Never in his life had he ever imagined that the toads were living in such a beautiful land. Amazing isn't it? Jiraiya said knowing exactly what the Jinchuriki was thinking. Why yeah, I mean wow. So this is the Naruto I have heard so much about, Naruto heard someone say, and when he turned his eyes to the source of the voice, he was surprised to find 2 short yet old-looking toads staring at him. Hey, who are you? Well please excuse my manners, this is Shima-chan, and my name is Fukasaku, and I'm going to teach you Sage Mode, the now identified Fukasaku said. Ah, I will go get some food for Naruto-chan. He has to taste my delicious food before he begins his training. Shima said looking at her husband. Fukasaku just nodded, he did not want to deal with his wife now. Naruto was more important. Follow me Naruto-chan. Naruto crouched out of the small house and followed Fukasaku. They went to a clearing, which had statues of large toads. Naruto just walked over enjoying the cool breeze that washed over him. The air around him was enjoyable and not the same as the air he breathed at the hideout. The air at village of the toads felt natural. Fukasaku ordered Naruto to sit down while he stood staring at the blonde with a serious look on his face. Before I even begin to teach you Senjutsu you have to know the risks. He said making Naruto raise a brow. Learning Senjutsu requires you to absorb chakra from nature and balance it with your own physical and spiritual energy. The chakra you absorb from nature is extremely powerful. Absorbing too much of the chakra or not having too much control of the chakra will turn you into one of those. He said pointing at the statues that seemed to decorate the area. Naruto was certainly not expecting something like that to be as the risk of learning Senjutsu. Jiraiya had said Senjutsu was powerful. Naruto now could conclude that nothing of great power did not come easy to achieve. Nevertheless, for great power to be achieved one had to deal with the risks. Do you still want to train even when knowing that you can die? Fukasaku asked. Yes, I have never been the one to back down from anything. Naruto replied with a smile. Fukasaku smiled, I thought you might say something like that. He then instructed Naruto to sit beside a waterfall. That was what Naruto thought, but it was not actually water that was flowing, but oil. To be able to absorb natural energy, you must be able to be one with nature, feel nature and hear nature. He said as Naruto took a meditative pose. Getting in touch with nature should be easy given that you meditate a lot. He said. Is it possible to train somewhere else in the elemental nations other than here? Naruto asked. Fukasaku nodded, yes. However, due to the risks you have to train here. This oil helps you to absorb nature chakra easily. It is only found here and cannot be found anywhere. He said poured the oil on Naruto. When you absorb too much chakra I will hit you with this. He said as a black stick suddenly appeared on his hand. This stick will force natural chakra out of your body when the process of purification begins. But those things said, Naruto began his Senjutsu training with the Toad Sage. Jiraiya looked at the toad gave him a nod, he talked to them to train Naruto in Senjutsu, and while they had expressed their concerns about the Jinchuriki being too young, Jiraiya had still managed to convince them that the boy needed all the strength he could get. He told them about the Akatsuki, the danger they posed to Naruto's life, so they toads finally agreed, knowing that they could lose another summoner if they didn't train him. I leave him in your hands. I'll be meeting some contacts and hopefully get some more intel on the Akatsuki and their motives. I'll be back in a month or two, he said before disappearing in a puff of smoke. 2 months later. I'm impressed. Getting a grasp of Sage Mode at such a young age is quite a feat. Meeting a young one who can stay still at all is rare enough, but sensing and absorbing natural chakra is near impossible, Fukasaku said, bringing his stick back into his clock. Thanks Fukasaku-sama, I can't wait use this to beat Jiraiya's ass, he'll be so jealous that I managed to master Sage Mode while he failed, Naruto replied with a shit-eating grin. Oh ho ho, mastered, eh? I'd say you have a ways to go before you've mastered Sage Mode. What kind of enemy would let his opponent sit there and charge up energy for 10 minutes? As it is now, your Sage Mode is useless in combat, said Fukasaku. Well, what else can I do, huh? You said it yourself, one must be absolutely still when gathering natural chakra or risk losing control and joining these poor fools who tried and failed, said Naruto, gesturing to the surrounding statues of toads in meditative poses, those who had failed their Sage Mode training and paid the price. Yes, one must be still when gathering natural chakra, but not when using it. And it's child's play for one sage to give natural chakra to another sage. Using a technique I developed for just such a use, the Sage Art. Amphibian technique, Shima and I confuse with you. We gather the natural chakra while you do the fighting in Sage Mode. Pretty useful, huh? Said Fukasaku, obviously pleased with himself for creating such an amazing technique. Meanwhile, Naruto was imagining what a fusion of himself and Fukasaku would look like, his mind conjuring monstrosity after monstrosity for to be horrified by. Seeing the look on his face, Fukasaku quickly explained. It's not an equal fusion. It mostly looks like we're just sitting on your shoulders. Naruto let out the breath he had been holding in relief. Fukasaku quickly jumped on his shoulder and began the technique. It didn't last long as the small toad was violently ejected from his perch. Fukasaku picked himself up and began thinking as to why his wonderful technique had failed so catastrophically. He came up with nothing and decided to try again, brushing off Naruto's concern for his well-being. Upon attempting the amphibian technique again, the jutsu seemed to work as intended for an instant. I refuse to share this cage with some pathetic little frog. Out. And the instant was gone as Fukasaku was launched across the clearing once again. This time, however, he had a much clearer idea of what had gone wrong. Ah. Are you okay? Asked Naruto in concern. Yes. Yes, I'm fine. It's the Nine Tails that's rejecting the amphibian technique. I'm afraid that you won't be able to use Sage Mode. I realize this must be a lot to take in, but the toads and I think nothing less of you. This is. Stop. Interrupted Naruto, his hair shadowing his eyes. I won't let this stupid fox dictate what I can and can't do. If I can't fuse with you to use Sage Mode, then I'll just learn to use Sage Mode while moving. What? That's impossible. Gathering natural chakra, whose entire purpose is to be gathered while still, while moving is impossible. It can't be done. Said Fukasaku in disbelief. Before you, Sage Mode was next to useless. You invented the amphibian technique, I'll invent something to gather natural chakra while moving. Said Naruto determinedly. Fukasaku's eyes widened before he smiled a devious smirk. Alright, if anyone can do it, it's you. But I don't want you trying this without me nearby to knock the natural chakra out of you. Said Fukasaku, brushing himself off. No worries, I've been studying Fuinjutsu for the past 2 years now, so I'm sure I can create something that can allow me to maintain Sage Mode without having to stay still, Naruto said, ever confident in his skills. 2 weeks later. Fukasaku didn't know whether what he liked about Naruto the most. His determination or his talent. Firstly, the 15-year-old surpassed all his expectations when he mastered Sage Mode in just 2 months, not even Minato managed to do that. Then 2 weeks later, the Jinchuriki created a seal that allowed him to maintain Sage Mode at all times even during sleep. Fukasaku was never one to believe the constant bullshit that the Grand Elder Toad kept spilling about some child of prophecy, but now he was actually starting to believe. The Toad looked at the grinning young boy again, paying close attention to the seal on his chest and back. The seal on the chest designed with a kanji for inlet and outlet for the one on his back. Apparently, the seal he had created was in 2 sets, namely, the inlet seal and the outlet seal. After countless days of trying and failing to come up with a suitable seal, the Jinchuriki had gone to a river to freshen up, but after observing the water pass through a tunnel and go out through the other end, the blonde realized that if he was to make Sage Mode easy for himself, he had to act like the tunnel. If he had created a seal that only allowed nature chakra inside his body, then his body would not be able to contain the constant chakra getting into his system. It would only be a matter of time before he would blow up like some overinflated balloon. Even the Kyuubi's chakra was held by a seal, so he realized that having an unlimited amount of nature chakra in his body was just asking for trouble. Thus came the creation of the sealing art. Inlet and outlet seal. The inlet seal allowed the nature to get into his system, while the outlet seal took the chakra out his system as soon as it entered, creating a perfect balance. The seal acted in such a way that as long as there was nature chakra in the environment, which there was, he would always be in sage mode, unless he closed both sets of the seal. Fukasaku-sama. Naruto said, bringing the older sage out of his musings. What is it, my boy? Is there a problem? He asked with a bit of concern in his tone. Not at all, it's just that ever since I started learning elemental ninjutsu with Jiraiya-sensei, I learned wind and earth manipulation quite easily, since wind is my primary element while earth is secondary, but since the likes of Kakashi-sensei and Tsurutobi Jiji are able to use all 5 elements, I trained harder to try and master the other 3 elements as well, but I couldn't even get down the basics of them. Yesterday though, when I was in sage mode, I tried to burn a leaf with fire chakra, and surprisingly enough it worked. When I tried it again in my normal state, I failed miserably. Can you explain that to me? Said the blonde, looking at his teacher intently. Well, it's really not that surprising really. You see, nature chakra does not belong to any specific element. Water, earth, wind, fire, neither lightning nor any other element, that's because nature has them all. That's why when one completely masters sage mode they become aware and in tune with the world that surrounds them. Sage mode is not just about gaining some more power or sensory abilities, it's the ability to feel and understand the world as a whole. That's why one of the first stages of mastering sage mode is meditation. So yes, while in sage mode it will be easier for you to learn and execute elemental ninjutsu, the toad explained to the blonde. I see. It's quite fascinating, no wonder Jiraiya-sensei values it so much, Naruto remarked. Naruto-chan, food is ready. This time I cooked a lot cause I know that you two must be really hungry, Shima said, approaching master and student. While Fukasaku's face showed an excited grin, Naruto couldn't help but pray for Jiraiya's immediate return. He was really getting sick and tired of eating bugs and caterpillars all day. End chapter. A real and complete sage. Natural energy is energy that can be collected from the atmosphere and terrain. If one can collect the natural energy from around them and combine and balance it with the spiritual and physical energy that makes up their chakra, they can become sages, allowing them to use senjutsu and enter sage mode, due to it being the energy of the planet. If the world's natural energy is interfered with, powerful natural disasters ranging from earthquakes to tornadoes occur instantly. Mastery over such energy, whether mild or complete control, is an ability almost all shinobi would dream of having under their arsenal, but like all things that are truly worth possessing, it takes hardest of training sessions, the blood, sweat, tears, meditation, concentration and pushing your body to the absolute limit, breaking those limits while creating new ones, and when it's all said and done, very few shinobi have ever managed to truly master senjutsu. Some shinobi were known to use jutsu that utilize nature energy, but that's not the same as mastering nature energy. In fact, out of the hundreds of shinobi that have tried to master senjutsu, only Hashirama, Jiraiya and Minato were known to have mastered the power of senjutsu, and even then the last 2 had never truly completely mastered it. All these facts though didn't seem so significant when Jiraiya looked at his latest student with wide eyes. Sage mode, a technique that he had spent years upon years trying to fully master, a technique that Minato, a once-in-a-lifetime genius, could only use for less than 5 minutes, and yet his son, the so-called dead last of his class, had somehow managed to not only master senjutsu, but also figured out a way to maintain it at all times. I can't believe it, the Sannin sage said, walking around Naruto in circles like he was trying to confirm that what he was seeing was real. Well, I'm just that impressive, suck it up, Naruto responded smugly, still in sage mode. Honestly, he has yet to deactivate the seal since he created it. Impressive indeed, he has shattered all my expectations, and then some, Fukasaku remarked, standing next to the 2 summoners. Why yeah, he's managed to surpass me, it really is unbelievable, Jiraiya said, obviously agreeing with Fukasaku, while Naruto merely stood there soaking up the praise like a sponge. Damn right, Iro-sennin, I told you I'll be more powerful than you by the end of this training trip, he said. Ho ho, I said that you've surpassed me, that doesn't necessarily mean you're more powerful, blondie. You're 100 years too young to hold a candle to my awesomeness. You want to test that, perv? The younger sage challenged. Fine. I've always enjoyed putting my foot up someone's ass, but I'll particularly enjoy this one considering you'll have no excuses to give afterwards. Jiraiya said, already in a fighting stance. It goes both ways, sensei. Alright, enough you two. Geez, and you're supposed to be our strongest summoners, Fukasaku chided playfully before master and student could start their brawl. Before I forget, Naruto-chan, Ma and I made this for you, we hope you like it, he said, presenting Naruto with a black cloak with flames at the bottom and kanji for sage, written in red at the back with an Uzumaki swirl just on top of it. Wow, thanks a lot Fukasaku-sama, Naruto said, happily hugging the cloak. It was obvious to both Toad and Sanin that the blonde didn't get much presents. Hey, wait a minute. Minato and I were sages way longer than the squirt, how come you didn't give us anything? Asked Jiraiya. Because Minato-chan and you didn't master Senjutsu the way Naruto boy has, and what's more, he did it in just a month and a half, responded the elder Toad, while Naruto snickered, earning himself a glare from the older sage. Naruto-chan's accomplishment makes him our first complete sage, he finished, giving the said blonde a proud look. Yep, that's right, me, Naruto Uzumaki, the one and only real Toad sage. Unlike those other fools, the blonde gloated, gesturing to the surrounding statues of toads in meditative poses, those who had failed their sage mode training and paid the price. His boasts though were interrupted when he felt a pole coming down on his head with enough force to sink a nail into metal. Stop disrespecting your predecessors, fool, they might have failed to master sage mode, but they were still Toad summoners, just like you, Fukasaku scolded, putting the pole he was using to beat the extra nature energy out of him down. Ow, okay, I'm sorry, geez, Naruto, placing his hands on his bruised head, that was definitely going to leave a mark. Anyway, before you go, why don't you go and thank Ma personally for being a good host? She was very excited and proud of you that she prepared a huge congratulatory banquet, the Toad said, his eyes seeing stars, while he salivated at prospect of an all-you-can-eat feast. Fukasaku was so excited that he failed to notice the panicked and horrified looks on his two students. Well, unfortunately I had already eaten before coming here, Jiraiya lied smoothly, patting on his stomach for emphasis. Well, why you see I'm on one true sage, you wouldn't want to keep Shima-sama waiting, would you? Don't be disrespectful, the Sannin said, interrupting Naruto's mumblings. The younger blonde glared at his master, giving him the finger only for the Sannin to respond with a cheeky thumbs up and an enjoy yourself look. Go fuck yourself, sensei, the blonde said, verbalizing his earlier thoughts. A week later. Ever since Orochimaru killed Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya has never felt so pissed off before. He was really boiling with so much rage that he felt like putting his hands around his blonde companion's neck and strangle him to death. He gave a death glare to his student, who was doing an amazing job ignoring him as they walk away from a small village in the land of honey, having run out of supplies and everyday necessities. It was during his everyday research sessions when his stupid student, his fucking asshole of his student, decided to go to the bank and somehow managed to withdraw half of the Sannin's money and deposit it in his pathetic little account. Seriously, half. That's about 45 million Ryo. Cages didn't have that much money in their account, not even Inoki, who has been in that damn sit for almost half a century. If he had only withdrawn a million or two, the white-haired sage wouldn't have minded much, but 45 fucking million Ryo. He looked at the direction of his student, who was spotting an obnoxious grin. Right then and there, Jiraiya was really tempted into smashing a Rasengan on the back of Naruto's stupid head. The silence went on for about 5 minutes until Jiraiya finally exploded. Why the hell did you steal so much of my money, you stupid brat? He shouted. Meh. 00. The Sannin's left eye twitched with annoyance as he continued staring at his student. Naruto, I swear to you, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you if you don't give me a proper explanation. Now talk, he threatened. TSK, Hero Sennin, 3 years ago maybe that threat would have had me shaking in my pants, but today with my perfect sage mode, your old ass cannot keep up, the young sage said, giving him that annoying unbearable grin. Arrogance. Sure, a few days ago master and student had gone toe-to-toe in a full-blown spar, and in the slightest of margins, the blonde, assisted by his sage mode of course, managed to topple the Sannin. Goes to show much the blonde had grown since they started this training trip. I still want a reason, you blonde bastard. It will be useful when I start restoring my clan, plus I need a new apartment, a real sage cannot live in such a place. Will you stop with the real sage bullshit? Jealous sensei. Jiraiya merely mumbled about disrespectful arrogant brats as they continued walking. But did you have to get so much money? Half of that amount is enough for restoring 2 clans, and more than enough for 2 whole lifetimes, the veteran shinobi said. Which should mean that it's more than enough for 1 perv, the student countered. I got a spy network to run. And whores to visit. Exactly. Well then, consider it punishment for taking a 15-year-old to a brothel as his birthday present. Honestly, how irresponsible can you get? Naruto scolded. HMPH, last I checked you enjoyed yourself immensely, Jiraiya retorted, giving his student a pervy grin. Naruto looked away from his sensei, his face containing a blush that would make Hinata proud. I'm a teenager with raging hormones, what the hell did you expect? Besides, that's really not the point, responded Naruto, making a silly excuse for himself. It's exactly the point, making some pathetic excuses for yourself, especially when we both know just how much you enjoyed it, is quite retarded. Whatever Iro-senin, it's just that I'm still trying to figure out a way to properly deal with Hinata's feelings for me when we go back to Konoha, so you paying some random whores to flash their D-cup-sized titties at me is not helping things, said the Jinchuriki. There's nothing to worry about, Squirt, just tell her to flash her tits to the one and only complete sage, and if you like them, then she's as good as yours. Besides, from my experience, shy girls are quite freaky in bed, the Sannin said, whispering the last part of his sentence with a perverted giggle, obviously remembering something that would give even Orochimaru a bloody nose. I'm serious, you stupid perv, can you not think with you for once? Naruto angrily shouted, his face going red from the wanted images his brain was creating. Stupid hormones. I am being serious, and that face of yours is already clear proof that you're also thinking about it, said Jiraiya, his ever-existing smirk on his face. You're impossible. The two continued walking in comfortable silence for a few minutes, giving the Sannin time to really think about his godson's growth and what is possibly awaiting him in the future. Akatsuki. The criminal organization he has been investigating for years without much success. For a group of shinobi who walked around in black cloaks and red clouds on them, information about their whereabouts and activities was rather scarce. That and the fact that they had a spy network much better than the older sage himself, making them a much bigger threat. Ever since he started investigating them, the only information he got was that they were only comprised of S-rank shinobi. Orochimaru was once a member, its other members are Itachi, Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki, and that they were targeting all the Jinchuriki. For what purpose? He had no idea. Why did Orochimaru leave? He had no idea. Who was their leader? He had no idea. Who were the other members? He had no fucking idea. It was honestly frustrating trying to find anything out about this organization. The only thing he could do is hope Naruto's training was enough to beat these guys. The Sannin made a silent vow to protect Naruto at all costs. He has already failed to protect his first students, the AIM orphans, his prized student Minato, and he also failed to look out for Naruto during his rather harsh childhood, but this time he would be damned if he let anything happen to his godson. Jiraiya took a quick peek at his blonde student, who has been in sage mode ever since they left Mount Myaboku. His eyes were golden yellow with bar-like pupils and natural chakra, showing itself as orange markings around his eyes, and he was wearing the cloak that the toads had made for him. Well, despite his obnoxious boasts, the blonde Uzumaki has really grown during these last 3 years, not only in strength but in intelligence as well. Looking at him now, he's such a stark contrast to the person he was when they first started. The 12-year-old child who struggled for recognition, acceptance and looked like he had the weight of the whole world on his shoulders, but skillfully hid it behind the face of a smiling knucklehead. Now he is a 15-year-old real shinobi who was confident in his own abilities and his place in the world, and Jiraiya couldn't help but feel a bit of the guilt that has been within his heart concerning his abandonment of the blonde Jinchuriki with her. The Oiro-senin said, Jinchuriki said, interrupting his thoughts. You know how my chakra is so condensed and just too damn much that I couldn't manage to use the academy basic jutsu like the Bushin, right? What of it? Well, 2 days ago I was messing around with the cage Bushin because I was just bored, but then I realized something when I tried the transformation jutsu on the clone. What? Jiraiya asked, getting curious as to where the Jinchuriki was going with this. Yes, well, I hinged into a toad yesterday, and I actually turned into real durable and tangible toad, Naruto said, wide eyes from the veteran shinobi. Naruto, that is not how the transformation technique works. I know, the henge is a weaker class ninjutsu, and all it does is allow you to apply an illusionary layer over yourself that merely looks like a different thing. If the henge was a solid transformation, every shinobi with access to it would use it to grant themselves shapeshifter abilities, like turning their hands into swords. But you've somehow managed to do something that no shinobi has ever done before, and that's to make yourself a shapeshifter using the henge, the Sannin said, wondering if his student was quite possibly one of the most talented shinobi out there, because this was just getting ridiculous. I could do this since I first started using chakra, and I've just noticed it now. Honestly, it's like I was awesome long before I became the one and only real complete sage. Aha. Naruto frowned at his sensei's less than believing response, taking it as a challenge. The blonde quickly made a cage Bushin and instructed it to turn into giant eagle, which it did without any objection. A huge smoke cleared, showing a perfect brown giant eagle that looked like it was a summon animal. Amazing. The sage said, walking around the henge Naruto in circles, touching it in various places, trying to confirm its tangibility. He moved away from the clone and looked back at the blonde, who was grinning with an "I told you so" expression on his face. You're oversaturating the technique with chakra. I know. His tone took on one which befitted his title as a legendary Sannin. Fundamentally, when you oversaturate a technique like, say, a fireball, all you would get would be a roaring wildfire, and likewise when you oversaturate something like a water gun, you would get a tsunami. Of course, this lack of control and precision is expected with elemental techniques, but the henge isn't an elemental jutsu. Hence, all the excess chakra had nowhere else to go but back into the technique, granting the illusion tangibility and giving you the properties of whatever you transformed into, though I highly doubt it grants you the same durability. It does actually, look, the grinning blonde said, jumping on top of his henge that quickly launched itself in the air, flying as fast as it could with the blonde Jinchuriki on top. See, I just made transportation easier for myself without even thinking about it. Awesome, huh? Yeah, it is. Now come down here so that we can ride together and make this trip shorter, Jiraiya said, grinning at his student's genius. Nope. Eh? You want a free ride? You have to catch it first. With that being said, the henged eagle flew as fast as it could to the land of fire, leaving the Sannin behind. It took Jiraiya several seconds to process what had just happened. Jiraiya had never experienced this level of disrespect from any of his students before, ever. And so the great legendary Sannin, Toad Sage of Mount Myaboku, the man men want to be and women want, was reduced to chasing his student on his henge clone. Come back here and let me ride you, you stupid brat, I mean, let me get on top of your clone, just get here, damn it. The white-haired sage screamed out while comically chasing after his student. 2 days later. The two sages of Mount Myaboku were now currently on their way to the land of fire as they passed through the land of wind on Naruto's henge clone, who was now henged into an owl by the Sannin's insistence, claiming that owls were wiser than regular birds, thus befitting of a sage to ride on. The blonde didn't put much of a protest, considering the henge would last for about 4 to 5 hours before running out of chakra, thus helping them cover a bit of distance. Naruto looked back at his mentor, who was busy scribbling into his notebook with a pervy grin plastered on his face. A few hours ago, Jiraiya had forced Naruto to fly above the water springs of some random village so that the older man could do his research from above with a binocular. Where the hell did he even get one? All in all, he has never seen so many naked women in his life, and he could admit that a tiny bit of him enjoyed the view as much as the perv himself. These pervy thoughts, however, were disturbed when he sensed something, no, 3 somethings actually. He didn't know if these people were allies or not, but their chakra levels were definitely way above that of a regular jounin. Naruto frowned at that as he tried to quickly discern what was going on. Apparently his facial expression did not go unnoticed by the older sage, who wasted no time in asking what was wrong. I'm sensing 3 powerful chakras approximately 15 miles north, the Jinchuriki responded, his face becoming serious as he mentally prepared himself. It could be Suna Shinobi Naruto, we are in the land of wind after all, Jiraiya said, not seeing what was making his student so agitated. No, these are above average chakra signals, and I can sense a Biju in one of them, and whoever they are, their chakra keeps flaring like they're in a battle, Naruto replied. Jiraiya quickly understood the implications of those words the minute they left Naruto's mouth. Akatsuki. But who could they be fighting in a place like this? Ara. No, his spy network kept him up to date with the major events of the elemental nations, so he knew that Gaara was now Sunagakure's newest and youngest cage in history, and being the Kazuki-age, he wouldn't be battling the Akatsuki alone, while the village's shinobi seemed to be enjoying their peace. Alright then, let's check it out. Those simple words seemed to prompt the Jinchuriki into action, who quickly created 2 clones that henged into hawks. Both master and student sage jumped on the 2 henge clones and quickly flew to the site of action. 15 miles away. Fyu was not having a good day. A few months ago her team had been finally allowed to participate in the Chunin exams by the village leaders. She was so excited at the prospect of meeting new people and making friends that she happily took the opportunity. Despite the fact that the majority of her village ostracized and made her an outcast since she became a Jinchuriki, Fyu has always loved Kusa, so she wanted to make a good impression at the exams to bring more clients for them. The first part of the exams, the written portion, had been interesting to say the very least, but with enough help, be it reluctant, from her teammates, they had managed to pass. The second part of the exams, surviving the traitorous desert of Suna, had been harder than she had anticipated. They were required to deliver a scroll to the main tower of Suna within 3 days, and had to be among the first 5 teams to get there, so competition was always going to be fierce, not to mention dealing with the bandits, wild animals and traps set up for them. The first 2 days had been really hard, trying to get her teammates to work together with her, rather than brush her off like some curse they had to endure on their way to glory, especially now that their sensei was not around, so progress was low. On the 3rd day, things picked up when she ran into the teams from Konoha. She had immediately befriended them because they seemed like nice people, and they helped each other pass the exams. Unfortunately, the 3rd and final portion of the exams could not take place because of some emergency issues had come up that the higher-ups had to deal with, meaning that the Chunin exams was cut short so they would promote from the performance of the 2 portions only. On their way back home, after saying goodbye to all her newfound friends and making them promise to visit her of course, her team ran into none other than the immortal Kakuzu himself, a man whose legend was so well known in Kusa that parents used it to scare their kids into behaving. Apparently the 90-plus-year-old man had joined some criminal organization called the Akatsuki, who were targeting Jinchuriki. Honestly, being teammates with a Jinchuriki was a hard enough task, and yet these guys deliberately choose to pick fights with them. What kind of monsters were they? Oh right, S-rank shinobi. And so, here she was, her entire team completely slaughtered by Kakuzu's sadistic partner, while she defended herself against the immortal man himself. The battle, if it could even be called that, was pretty much one-sided. Fu used every jutsu in her arsenal, even her Bijuu's chakra, but Kakuzu somehow managed to take everything she threw at him and walk out of it with nothing but a mere scratch. Fu was no fool, eye roll, she knew from the moment it started that this battle was going to be her last, every part of her knew, and yet she didn't want to give up, she wanted to push on, give it everything she had, and hopefully find some sort of lifeline, anything to ensure her survival. Her hopes however were crushed when the sadistic man that had massacred her team came rushing at her with his bloody scythe in hand screaming maniacally. Fu quickly ducked to avoid the clearly crazy man's initial swing, she quickly brought her left hand up to block his following punch. Her Bijuu's wings quickly sprouted, allowing her to fly away from her attacker, though she didn't reach far before Kakuzu's lightning mask came flying up to her ready to roast her alive. She closed her eyes, finally having resigned herself to her impending fate. She could feel the mask charging its chakra in preparation for a jutsu, so she waited. Then. Rasen Shuriken. She heard someone scream. Fu heard a screeching noise and quickly opened her eyes trying to see what was happening and saw a Fuma Shuriken-like jutsu crush into the lightning mask, destroying it instantly. The blonde-haired boy quickly jumped in front of her, his eyes venomously staring at her assailants, while the older man quickly shunshined next to Kakuzu's partner and slammed a big bowl Rasengan in his gut, sending him flying into the woods. She quickly recognized the older white-haired man as Jiraiya of the Sannin from the bingo books, but she couldn't recognize the blonde-haired boy that had just saved her life. "Are you okay?" he said, bringing her out of thoughts, though his eyes never left the two Akatsuki members. "Why yes," she said, inwardly cursing her weak response. "Ow." The scythe-carrying nin screamed angrily. "That hurt, you stupid ugly piece of shit." He finished, pointing his scythe at Jiraiya. "Hidan, shut up. That's not some ordinary shinobi you're talking to, dumbass," Kakuzu said, not only annoyed with his partner's ever-present stupidity, but also with the fact that the blonde brat just seemingly destroyed his mask with practiced ease. For a bounty hunter like Kakuzu, battling shinobi with large bounties was his most favorite hobby, so he always made a point of keeping up with the latest entries in the bingo book, but he has yet to see this blonde brat before, and his chakra was quite interesting, he couldn't distinguish it from nature itself, and he has never seen or heard of any dojutsu that had described the ones in the blonde socket. Another Konoha upstart, he thought, getting ready for the battle, for quite possibly the fight of his long life. Although he masked it perfectly with a look of calm, Naruto couldn't help the nervousness he was feeling at the moment. These guys were one of the biggest reason he has been busting his ass for the past 3 years. He was still confident in his own abilities, but still these bastards were purposely targeting Jinchuriki, which meant that they were at least prepared to fight him should he transform. Taking a quick peek at his fellow Jinchuriki, Naruto confirmed his theory. Despite the fact that she was still standing, the girl looked like she was knocking on death's door. For a split second, Naruto wondered if he was really ready to face these people. "Naruto, get ready. This is what we have been training for, now snap out of it," Jiraiya said, easily deciphering the blonde Jinchuriki's thoughts. Naruto quickly shook his head, disrupting the negative thoughts going through his mind, and took a fighting stance. "Well, I guess there's only one way to find out." End chapter. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes at the two Akatsuki members. He knew of Kakuzu and the notorious history of the rogue Taki shinobi. He was one of the few ninjas to ever survive a battle with Hashirama Senju, though instead of being honored, the village cruelly punished and imprisoned him. It is said that after escaping prison, he stole the scroll containing his village's forbidden jutsu, where he learned Earth Grudge Fear and used it to take the hearts of the village leaders before leaving the village. His name did pop here and there during the Second and the Third Shinobi War, when reports came that the former Taki ninja was working as a bounty hunter and as a freelance shinobi, taking on some of the most dangerous missions for big money, which was something else the former Taki nin was notorious for. Greed and a deep lust for money. Jiraiya knew of many bounty hunters, all of whom were mostly interested in going after the big fish, and admittedly he has faced quite a lot of them, but none of them could ever match Kakuzu's ambition. This man was crazy enough to go after one of the strongest shinobi in Hanzo the Salamander, simply because the man had one of the largest bounties in the entire elemental nations. Of course he failed, but the mere fact that he survived the one-on-one encounter with Hanzo when the entire team Hiruzen had barely escaped with their lives is nothing short of amazing. But that was a long time ago. Jiraiya was still an inexperienced jounin at the time he was fighting Hanzo. Now he could comfortably say that he was one of, if not the most powerful shinobi in the elemental nations, with tons of experience and wisdom to back up his power. Not as much experience as the 91-year-old rogue nin of course, but still enough that mattered. The Sannin's eyes narrowed further as he eyed Hidan. It irritated him to realize that he knew next to nothing about the man. His name is Hidan and judging by the slashed forehead protector placed around his neck, he was from Otogakure. That's all he knew about him. His face didn't ring any bells from any bingo books, and from what he knows of Otogakure, the village turned from being a shinobi village to become a tourist attraction years ago. This man has no reputation whatsoever. Jiraiya knew nothing of his skills, past battles or even a dangerous mission Hidan had been on. And yet he found himself in Akatsuki, the most dangerous threat to the elemental nation in history, comprised of only S-rank shinobi. So it was quite right for Jiraiya to assume that Hidan was also an S-rank shinobi himself, despite the fact that he didn't know or recognize him. If participating in 2 major wars and countless other battles had taught him anything, it would be to never underestimate his opponents, simply because of reputation or rather a lack of it. If the Akatsuki trusted him enough to hunt down Jinchuriki for them, then he sure as hell wouldn't underestimate him. Hell, Naruto was basically a nobody in the elemental nations, and the Sannin himself knew firsthand just how powerful the blonde was, so who's to say that Hidan wasn't the same. And because of that, Jiraiya deemed Hidan as the most dangerous of the two, but he wasn't going to make any decisions based on assumptions alone. Then again, considering that this was a 3-on-2 situation, he guessed the odds favored his side. Nevertheless, he still wasn't going to make any reckless decisions. The older sage looked at his student, frowning and seemingly ready for action. Well, I guess now's the time to find out if you are really ready, Naruto, he thought. Come on. Just what the fuck are we waiting for? Hidan screamed with frustration, much to the annoyance of his partner. Shut up, Hidan, Kakuzu said in a dangerously low tone, though he was interrupted when Jiraiya spoke out loud. Now Naruto. No sooner had Jiraiya said those words than 2 Naruto clones puffed into existence. A second later they disappeared. A shift in the wind was the only warning they got as both clones were behind the 2 Akatsuki members, each clone swinging a Rasengan across their backs. Kakuzu's eyes widened when the clone slammed Hidan with a Rasengan so hard that he sent the Jashinist back into the woods with an incredible speed. Though the clone targeting him didn't have the same luck because the moment it connected with the Rasengan, Kakuzu used his experience with fast opponents. By using the iron skin jutsu, his skin instantly turned darker, his body became hard as iron, therefore the Rasengan didn't do much damage to him. The clone widened its eyes, but he used that moment to execute a high roundhouse kick that connected with its head, immediately puffing it out of existence. The next second the other clone was on him, but again, Kakuzu was prepared. The clone delivered an axe kick which Kakuzu easily blocked with his hands, but he didn't give the clone any other chance, as he countered with a brutal uppercut on it. Super exploding clone, the clone said before it went out with a big explosion. When the smoke cleared, it revealed a harmless Kakuzu staring at Naruto with an irritated expression. That won't work on me, boy, you're gonna have to try harder, he said, rubbing some dust off his cloak. Well, it seems that settles it. I'll handle Kakuzu while you 2 should go after that Hidan guy. Jiraiya commanded. But be careful, don't underestimate him, and if he proves to be too much to handle, then just hold him off until I'm done here. Got it, Fu, since you're still injured you will be my backup. Right, Fu's expression hardened as she nodded too, slipping back into her combat stance and summoning a water sword again, ready to fight alongside her fellow teen. Jiraiya of the Sannin, Kakuzu said as he evaluated his opponent, well, this is a surprise, today seems to be my day, your prowess and actions as a spymaster have given you an enormous bounty. Damn it. Hidan cried as he emerged from the woods, rolling his shoulder as he shrugged off the pain of the attack. That hurt, you little shit. Where the fuck did you even come from? He may not be fast like his partner, but it seems that he can at least take a hit, though I still can't believe he just shrugged off the Rasengan like that, Naruto commented. Ha. Like I told that little cunt, we are immortals, Dumbus, Hidan taunted with a grin spread across his face. And I've told you a million times that there is no such thing as an immortal. Jiraiya grunted in response before making 2 hand signs and slamming his palm into the ground, earth style. Dark swamp. Both Akatsuki members' eyes widened as the earth transformed into thick mud at the Sannin's touch, rapidly spreading across the ground towards them. The 2 leapt in different directions to escape the spreading bog which chased after them in both directions. Jiraiya released his jutsu and sped after his opponent as Naruto, and Fu did the same with Hidan. Fire style. Flame bullet. Jiraiya inhaled deeply and breathed out a massive oil-filled ball of fire which barreled towards the missing nin, who leapt over the attack. Kakuzu was very fast, very strong, and highly skilled into jutsu, but Jiraiya outdid him in all these areas. However, he was still pushing Jiraiya back against a wall. Why, you might ask, was the sage having so much trouble? All one needed to do was look at Kakuzu to find the answer. Though he still looked normal, his skin had taken an unnaturally dark tone. He was using a jutsu Jiraiya recognized as Earth style. Iron skin to harden his body, making every inch of himself nearly as hard as tempered steel. Jiraiya had punched him earlier, sending him into a tree, but all he got out of it was a stinging hand as it felt like he'd really punched metal. This was why he wasn't damaged by the Rasengan earlier, and Jiraiya was having a hard time finding a way around this defense. Flipping in midair, the man threw his forearm out towards the Sannin, which shockingly detached from his arm, connected to him by the numerous threads, and flew towards the Sannin. The Toad Sage leapt back to dodge only to look in shock as the limb changed direction, shooting towards his throat and gripping his neck as the threads ensnared him. He tried to pry off the hand that was choking the life out of him, only for the threads to entangle themselves around his body, restraining his arms and preventing him from fighting back. Is that the best you can do?" Kakuzu asked. Despite this, his senses were warning him of danger. This had been too easy. There was no way someone with a bounty as large as his would be taken down this quickly. Sure enough, his instincts were proven right when the Sannin smirked and burst into smoke. Kakuzu frowned as he recalled his now empty appendage. "When did you?" Suddenly, he was doused from behind with a sticky green fluid. Kakuzu struggled, but he quickly found himself encased in the mass and unable to move. You should have known that it would take more than that to bring down the great Jiraiya-sama," Jiraiya said as he stepped out of the foliage, though he kept his distance. "I suggest you don't struggle. A single spark is all it'll take for you to go up in a ball of fire. I doubt your jutsu would protect you from the raging inferno this stuff would make." Kakuzu responded. "You vastly underestimate me." Surprisingly, without hand signs, the ex-Taki ninja inhaled deeply. "Water style." Exploding water shockwave. Kakuzu spit up a massive surge of water, blowing his mask off his face and revealing his lower jaw was stitched to his head as well, each side beginning at the corner of his lips, giving him the appearance of an ear-to-ear grin. The flood of water was so massive it pushed Kakuzu off of the ground and sent a wave towards the Sannin, which he dodged by taking to the trees. Looking down on him from a branch, with a grim expression. This wasn't good. To be able to use a jutsu without a single hand sign was an extremely advanced art. It required total mastery, not only of the element, but of that jutsu itself. It showed he hadn't been wasting the decades since his defection. "It was foolish of you to leave those two with Hidan," Kakuzu stated as he looked up at the Sannin, his expression neutral. "Though you were right in believing I was the greater threat, but Hidan may very well kill those two." He then shook his head, his gaze turning in the direction of the other battle. "I get enough complaints from our leader for killing my previous partners. The last thing I need is flack for him killing one of our targets and delaying our plans." Jiraiya's frown deepened at that. This guy killed his own partners. Either he was a complete bastard or despite his calm demeanor, he was just as likely to go into a blind rage as his partner. Taking note of that, Jiraiya questioned. "So, you said the last ninja of our village you fought was the first. And I heard you once engaged Hanzo the salamander in one-to-one combat, pretty impressive that you actually managed to survive." Kakuzu grunted in response. "Survive is too strong a word. I dragged myself back to that pitiful excuse for a village half dead after that battle, and how do they respond?" He scoffed. "That's when I learned a valuable lesson. The only things in this world you can really count on are yourself and money." With a smirk, Jiraiya nodded. "Yeah, seems to me you did learn something valuable." "Oh?" Kakuzu tilted his head. "You said he was the last Konoha ninja you fought. You learned not to mess with our village." Jiraiya replied tauntingly, though Kakuzu's expression didn't change. Jiraiya then raised his hand, holding his palm up and parallel to the ground as he added. "Not that I blame you. If I'd been beaten that badly, I'd probably run scared every time I saw the Konoha symbol too. Don't flatter yourself, brat. Well, my battle with the first was many years ago, the only reason I haven't faced a Konoha shinobi since is because I don't go after small fry. Since the deaths of your second, third and fourth Hokages, the only shinobi your village produced with bounties worth my time are yourself, Tsunade, Orochimaru, Might Guy, Asuma Saratobi and Kakashi Hedek, not counting Itachi of course. I simply haven't had the opportunity to pursue them yet since I've been collecting valuable bounties from all the other villages. Perhaps you'd like me to collect Tsunade's head after yours, since she'll be the next Konoha ninja with the highest bounty after yours, and she's nowhere near as powerful as her grandfather was." Kakuzu said darkly with clear intention that he'd do what he said. Jiraiya's face darkened, his fists clenching when he heard the ex-Taki ninja threaten Tsunade. He would make the man regret threatening his old teammate. Before he could respond, the Akatsuki member continued. "But maybe you'd like to see how much I've changed since that day." With that, Kakuzu's face twisted in effort as he clenched his fists. His back began to shift unnaturally as the massive threads beneath his skin shifted and they unstitched his back until finally, his back burst open. 3 masses of threads tore themselves out of him, each one with a mask, and shaped themselves into a monster. One appeared to be a demonic tiger, another a 4-legged creatures with small, makeshift wings, and the final a twisted 2-tailed wolf. Jiraiya stared down in disbelief and disgust at what he saw, the forbidden jutsu making him think of his former teammate, Orochimaru. This seemed like it was right up his alley. Which brought the question. What kind of monster had this guy turned himself into? I normally have 5, but that other brat killed my lightning heart, Kakuzu said, then lightly shook his head. TSK, it really doesn't matter now, I will still kill you. How about this? The tiger-like construct leapt into the air and opened its mouth, revealing a small fireball. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he recognized the jutsu as fire style. Searing migraine. He quickly bolted to another tree just as the tiger-like monstrosity released a small fireball about the size as a fist, which erupted into a massive firestorm the moment it came into contact with the tree, destroying it and setting the nearby trees ablaze. The creature rapidly fired the attacks, causing Jiraiya to bound through the trees as it rapidly decimated the forest. While still in midair, Jiraiya sensed something wrong. His gaze fell downward to see the winged construct flying at him. It opened its mouth and wind spiraled towards it, compressing into a small ball. Jiraiya's face became a mask of shock. There was no way. This guy was using high-level techniques from 4 different elements. Even factoring in his long life, he shouldn't have been able to master the elements to this degree. The creature released the jutsu. Wind style. Pressure damage. The small ball of compressed air struck true, slamming into the center of Jiraiya's chest and exploding into a twisting maelstrom on contact, hiding him from view. When it cleared, however, nothing but torn pieces of a log fell to the ground. What? Kakuzu questioned as Jiraiya came at him from behind, wielding another Rasengan. He slammed it into his back, aiming for the stitches that held his body together, in hopes of ripping his body apart. The Akatsuki ninja was pushed forward by the attack for a moment before he fell apart into water. Jiraiya's eyes widened as the other constructs leapt away from him. He looked up to see the fire and wind-spewing creatures coming at him together, combining their attacks into a single ball of fire and wind. Oh, shit. Was Jiraiya's sole thought before they released a massive wave of wind and fire, then destroyed a huge section of the forest. As Naruto and Fu faced down Hidan, Kakuzu stared after the devastation his attack caused, tilting his head, knowing that wouldn't be enough to take care of the legendary shinobi. Minutes had passed, and still no sign of the Sannin. You can drop the act. It would take more than that to finish one of your caliber. The Akatsuki ninja stated as his eyes wandered the area. Sure enough, a mass of spiky white hair burst out of the ground, shaping into a form reminiscent of a lion's mouth as it lengthened and sped towards the missing nin. Kakuzu leapt back to avoid the attack, but it moved too quickly for all his masks to dodge. The winged construct was caught in the hair and driven through the air, slamming it into a tree with enough force to nearly break it in half. The strands of hair hardened to the point that each was like a steel needle, piercing the creature's mask. The construct writhed disturbingly in the grip of the Sannin's hair before seeming to melt, liquefying and slipping to the ground before the hair retracted. Kakuzu snarled at seeing his water-using mask destroyed. The Sannin burst out of the ground, immediately running through the hand signs for the fire style. Flame bullet technique once again, this time partitioning the oil to fire off small fireballs instead of one large one. The constructs quickly dodged through the air, flying even though they had no wings. Sensing danger, he spun to see Kakuzu himself coming down on him from behind, grabbing him by the shoulder and grappling with him through the air, trying to stab him through the chest with his hand as his tendrils burst from his body to ensnare him. Jiraiya managed to fight back, overwhelming Kakuzu's grip and manipulating his hair to fight the threads and stab Kakuzu, only for it to bounce off of him as he hardened his body. However, the hair did serve a purpose. Winning out against and tearing through the tendrils while entangling Kakuzu's arms and allowing Jiraiya to get the upper hand. Jiraiya gripped the missing nin's shoulder and maneuvered them, so Kakuzu's back was facing the rapidly approaching ground. Jiraiya pulled back his hand and clawed it. The iron skin technique was extremely difficult to overcome. Explosions, taijutsu short of the upper levels of the hidden lotus, and most ninjutsu were rendered useless due to the damage resistance the technique offered. There were only a few ways to counter it. First, use Jinjutsu. Not an option, Jinjutsu was never the Toad Sannin's thing. Second, use a lightning technique to pierce it. Again, not an option, as though the Toad Sannin knew enough to teach one how to use the element and had access to scrolls detailing advanced lightning jutsu, he didn't have the affinity and had never learned to use it. That left option 3, an extremely powerful attack that could shatter even the damage resilience the technique offered. Fortunately for the Sannin, he had just the thing and he owed it to his most recent student. During training, Jiraiya had commented on the giant Rasengan Naruto had created. The technique was far more powerful than the basic Rasengan, a testament to this being the fact that the attack is absolutely lethal, whereas the basic Rasengan was incapable of killing on its own. Inside Jiraiya's hand just a few inches away from his palm, chakra gathered and formed into a swirling orb, but unlike the normal technique, this Rasengan was only 1/4 the size of a basic one. A variant of the Rasengan created specifically to pierce powerful defenses. He thrust his hand forward, slamming the tiny orb into the missing nin's chest. Great Spear Rasengan. The attack drilled into Kakuzu's chest. With Jiraiya's hand and lengthened hair holding him in place, preventing the attack from pushing him back, it instead drilled into his steel-hard skin. Kakuzu cried out in pain as his chest was torn open, sending the black threads that seemed to hold his body together spiraling out and ripping his heart apart. Red blood and black liquefied tendrils flew from the side of the impact before finally, Jiraiya released him, allowing the orb to burst, releasing a wave of chakra that sent him flying, slamming into the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust. Jiraiya landed only a few feet away. The talkie missing nin lied there, motionless, lifeless eyes staring up into the starry night sky. Naruto and Fu vs Hidan. Naruto was confused as hell, for all the hype surrounding the Akatsuki's power and perceived threat to the elemental nations, he had really expected them to be the toughest ninja he would ever have to face. I mean, this was a criminal organization comprised of S-rank ninja, the toughest of the tough, the kind of ninja that could destroy a small ninja village by themselves, and could also hunt down Jinchuriki like they were ordinary shinobi. And yet, his fight with Hidan was going in the opposite direction that he would have expected. The Akatsuki member was slow, short-tempered, impatient, and he telegraphed all his moves. He only used Taijutsu with his triple-bladed scythe as a weapon. Sure, he had tremendous control of his scythe, amazing stamina and healing abilities, but other than that, the man showed no qualities that would warrant him an S-rank status. Despite the fact that he was losing the battle, Hidan did not stop to re-evaluate his opponents or form some sort of strategy, nor did he use a single ninjutsu or a genjutsu against them. Due to the enhanced Sage Mode speed and great control over the wind element, Naruto was able to easily avoid, dodge and counter Hidan's attacks. Finally, Naruto got fed up the man's predictable routine as he ducked, avoiding the outstretched side, and then countered with a brutal wind-powered uppercut that sent Hidan flying in the air. He quickly pressed the attack as he reappeared behind Hidan in the air and delivered another Rasengan on his back that sent him crushing back down on the ground. Fuck. Hidan cried out as he stood up again, ripping his torn Akatsuki robe off him. I'm really getting sick of that jutsu of yours, you little bastard, he said as he glared at Naruto. I could say the same with you, Naruto replied with a frown. How are you even in the Akatsuki? Because you are quite frankly one of the weakest people I've ever faced. Oh yeah? Wait until I put my curse on you, you little shit, Hidan lashed out, giving a fierce grin in the end. Trust me, I will enjoy our pain. Naruto's frown deepened because he didn't understand what the man was saying. He tilted his head to look at Fu, who had been pretty much non-existent throughout this battle. Hey, is this guy capable of anything other than swinging a scythe and cursing people out? He asked. I'm sorry, I was fighting Kakuzu while he was fighting my teammates, so I didn't see much of what he can do. Sorry, the girl answered, slightly put out by the fact that she was basically useless in this battle. Don't underestimate me. Hidan shouted enraged, so what if I'm the slowest member in the Akatsuki and not the smartest, but there is a reason I belong to the fucking group. Oh, and I can't wait to show it ya. I've already prayed for forgiveness from Jashin-sama, so I need is just one thing from you, and I will get it the slightest chance I get, the Jashinist said, seemingly losing himself in thought. Once our bodies are linked, you will witness just how great Jashin-sama really is, and you will realize the great power he has bestowed upon me. Oh yeah? Well then, let's see how your great Jashin helps you deal with this, Naruto said as he charged at Hidan with great speed, using his wind manipulation to once again appear behind Hidan. Naruto attempted a high roundhouse kick which Hidan dodged and quickly countered by swinging his scythe upwards. Naruto simply stepped on the cable connecting the scythe and used it as a launching pad to take to the air. Hidan followed after him, but quickly regretted the idea when Naruto came back down with a huge Rasengan. Massive Rasengan, Naruto said as he drove the jutsu into the Jashinist's chest, going back down with him as they reached the ground with enough speed to cause a sizable crater. Naruto used a Sunshin to stand next to Fu as he said, well, it appears that's that. We should go help Jiraiya. Ow. Man, I really hate you, kid, Hidan screamed out, interrupting him as he once again stood up. What the hell? You're still alive? Naruto exclaimed, shocked that Hidan was still able to stand despite the really large hole on his chest. Told you I'm immortal, dumbass, the Akatsuki member replied with a furious grin as his wounded chest started to heal. He further shocked the two teens when he brought the scythe up to his face and gave the two Jinchuriki a feral look. I also told you that all I needed was one chance, didn't I? Hidan's face lit up in a sadistic grin as he leapt away. As he moved backwards, he brought the scythe to his mouth and licked blood off of the blade. When he was satisfied with the speed, he quickly drew a seal on the ground. The preparations are complete. Hidan cackled in an almost insane manner as he stepped into the seal. You're now under my curse. The Jinchuriki would have commented on this before his body began to shift. His skin turned black with white, skeleton-like patterns appearing over his body with a skull-like symbol covering his face almost like a mask, giving him an appearance slightly reminiscent of a stereotypical Grim Reaper. I have been waiting for this, he said as he reached into the remnants of his coat and pulled out a collapsible pike, which he promptly opened up. And I want to make it slow and enjoyable, so then, let's revel in some glorious pain. Jiraiya vs Kakuzu. Jiraiya sighed as he looked down at the defeated Akatsuki member. That had been a fairly difficult battle. Now all that was left was two. Suddenly, he sensed something coming at him, fast. Looking up, his eyes widened in shock as he saw the three remaining masked creatures flying towards him and their master. The Sannin had expected the jutsu to be cancelled as soon as Kakuzu fell, but apparently not. He jumped backwards as the three slammed into Kakuzu, breaking apart into masses of threads as they neared him and remerging with his body. Jiraiya watched, disbelief written on his features as the man rose to his feet, the seams in his body bulging and retracting as the threads beneath his skin shifted and they burst from his body in masses. His arms separated from his body, linked two together via the threads, and a large mass of it spilled out from his lips. His back completely opened up, allowing riding tentacles made of the tendrils to form as the earth and wind spewing masks fastened themselves where Kakuzu's shoulders should have been, the fire mask vanishing into his body. Jiraiya took stock of his adversary's new form with a grim expression. How was he still alive? There was no way he'd missed his heart, and for that brief moment, he'd definitely been dead. The way that he revived when those things returned. I see there's so much more to Earth Grudge Fever Jutsu that I didn't know about, Jiraiya began, his mouth twisting in revulsion as he understood. That's how you've survived all these years. You've been using the forbidden jutsu you stole to take the organs, more precisely the hearts of shinobi you killed, and used them to replace your own. That's also what lets you use all the elements. You've been running your chakra through those stolen hearts and using the element of its original owner. You certainly are worthy of your title of Sannin. Kakuzu commented, speaking perfectly clearly despite the massive tendrils coming out of his mouth. You're exactly right. But now I've already lost 3 hearts because of you and that other brat. I'll need to restock yours and his will do. Jiraiya jumped back off of a branch as a massive tentacle of threads, which tore about 1/4 of the branches off of the tree, landing on the ground in a crouch and bolting to the side as the tentacle came back and slammed onto the spot he'd been standing on a mere moment earlier. Kakuzu had transformed once again. His lower and upper jaws had completely separated, allowing a massive tentacle to come out of mouth, accompanied by 7 more coming from his back and where his shoulders should be. They were linked together by bundles near their bases, allowing him to fly, if need be. The area around them had been devastated by their battle. Dead and torn up trees littered the area, and all the underbrush had been burned and ripped away. Scattered fires slightly illuminated the area, and deep wounds had been carved into the ground. Kakuzu seemed to favor massive, overpowering attacks that were difficult to dodge. Together with his speed and skill, and Jiraiya could see why he'd been recruited into the Akatsuki. He idly wondered what Kakuzu would do normally when he has a teammate he has to watch out for. Remembering his earlier comment, he figured he probably either didn't care and let them get caught in his attacks or was easily enraged into doing so. Which begged the question how his current partner was still alive. Hopefully, it was either due to luck or simply not having been his partner that long. As Jiraiya dodged the attack, he saw the masks besides Kakuzu's head open up, revealing a massive wind and an orb of fire. Jiraiya slammed his palms together as the masks released their attacks, creating a massive vortex of electrified water, and slammed his palms to the ground. Barrier. 3-pillar formation. A curved triangular barrier appeared before him, protecting him from the firestorm. He grit his teeth as he channeled chakra into the barrier to block the massive attack. Eventually, the attack passed. Jiraiya released his jutsu the moment it did and bolted forward, but the moment the smoke cleared, he saw the wind mask's mouth was still open, shooting out fast arrows of wind. Jiraiya tried as best he could to dodge them, but they were too fast, thus ended up piercing him in various parts of his body, though fortunately for him, Jiraiya was able to protect his vital spots. But Kakuzu pressed the advantage as he quickly delivered a brutal high kick to the Sannin's jaw, sending him flying, then used his outstretched hand to grab the sage's foot and slammed him back down to the ground, resulting in a small crater. Before Jiraiya could truly recover, another tentacle then slammed into the Sannin's chest, sending him flying through one of the damaged trees and into another, creating an indentation in the bark before he fell to the ground, trickles of blood leaking out of his mouth. As he fell through the air, another tentacle sped towards him, separating into its component threads and moving to ensnare him and tear out his heart. Jiraiya managed to recover and land on his feet. Ninja art. Needle Jizo. His hair once again became a mass of needles hard as steel that completely covered every inch of his body just as the tentacle reached him. He then spun on his feet so quickly he appeared to be a miniature tornado, tearing up the mass and causing it to back away. The moment he sensed they were gone, he let up his defense, jumping over the threads when they lashed out again and ducking and dodging them as he charged towards Kakuzu. He snaked around several tentacles that moved to strike him as he neared the Akatsuki nin and pulled his arm back, ducking below one final attack and knocking Kakuzu's arm aside before punching him in the gut, causing him to bend over. He then grabbed his head and slammed his knee into his face right between his eyes, dazing him slightly. Jiraiya then summoned a kunai to his right hand and slammed it into the water mask, causing it to cry out as a black substance leaked out before forming a Rasengan in his free hand as the tentacles moved in to ensnare him. He slammed the orb into Kakuzu's stomach, causing the tendrils to cease their assault and writhe before the attack exploded, sending Kakuzu flying back and away from him. He unfolded his tentacles and used the net of bundles between them to hover in the air, growling in frustration as the remains his wind-hardened mask was expelled from his body, replaced by the fire mask, which began to rapid-fire fireballs at him. Jiraiya quickly body flickered to avoid the barrage of fireballs, which created a massive conflagration when they hit the ground. Feeling the searing heat wash over him as he watched from behind a tree, Jiraiya smirked as he wiped the blood from his chin. There was a reason Itachi and Kisame had feared the prospect of facing him, as Kakuzu was beginning to realize. 3 down, 2 to go. Jiraiya thought as he looked for an opening. Naruto vs Hidan. Naruto and Fu stared at the silver-haired man who stood in the center of the seal he engraved in the ground in blood, his skin black with white skeletal patterns. What's he talking about? Fu asked, her eyes narrowed and her body tense in concern over their immortal adversary's transformation. While Naruto felt the same trepidation she did, he made a cross-shaped hand seal, summoning 5 more shadow clones. It doesn't matter, if that's what he's been hiding all along, then it's better we know about it now. With that, he sped after him ready to engage the man and see what the purpose behind his transformation was. Hidan just grinned as he raised the pike and stabbed himself in the leg. Suddenly, Naruto's eyes widened as pain shot through his system. He grit his teeth and gripped his leg and fell on one knee as blood suddenly seeped into his pants. In the exact same place where Hidan had just stabbed himself. Fu ran to the blonde's side, panic clear on her face. Are you okay? She stared at his wound, her gaze returning to the Akatsuki as she understood what was happening. Both Jinchuriki had realized that Hidan had somehow just linked their bodies together. Naruto finally understood why Hidan was recruited by Akatsuki. He was unkillable by being able to shrug off any injury, and by taking in the blood of his opponent, he could curse them and link their bodies together, and with his immortality, he could run himself through his heart and act like it was nothing. His opponent, however, wouldn't be so lucky. Hidan cackled as he took in Fu's panicked expression and Naruto's pain-filled, furious one. The pain as my enemy passes from this world radiates through my body and transcends agony into ecstasy. What's wrong with this guy? Fu wondered in the back of her mind in disgust over his sadomasochistic tendencies, but that thought was far from the surface of her thoughts. She had to stop Hidan from hurting Naruto through their link. Hidan dropped his scythe, holding onto its cord, before giving her a murderous grinning. Fu's eyes widened as she saw what he was going to do. No. All 3 of the scythe's blades stabbed Hidan diagonally through the stomach, though the man didn't seem to react beyond being pushed back by the impact. Fu's horrified gaze turned back to Naruto as he coughed up blood, holding his stomach as blood seeped into his clothing as Hidan began to chuckle, his cackles slowly building until insane laughter echoed through the clearing. Then Hidan's laughter quickly turned to shock as instead of Naruto screaming in pain and dying, he suddenly puffed out of existence. Hidan's transformation then turned back to normal as both he and Fu had confused looks on them. Earth style. Headhunter Jutsu Hidan heard from underground as he was quickly grabbed by the feet and dragged down into the earth from feet to neck, thereby completely immobilizing him. I see, so that's why you're considered an S-rank ninja. It has nothing to do with your skills, but your inability to be killed and that curse of yours, Naruto said with a condescending smile. What the fuck? How the hell are you still alive? I put my curse on you. Hidan yelled, still unable to believe that the blonde was still alive. You put a curse on my shadow clone, fool. It seems your curse cannot tell the difference between clone and original, Naruto replied. Hey. Fu exclaimed, what the hell is wrong with you? You could have at least warned me of your plan. I thought that crazy bastard had managed to kill you, you know. Naruto merely tilted his head and gave the girl a sheepish grin as he scratched the back of his neck. Sorry about that, I just wanted to see what this idiot was capable of, and using a shadow clone seemed like the best way to do so, he said. Still could have warned me, Fu mumbled. She felt stupid that she fell for something like that. You know what, fuck rituals. I'm going to kill you with my bare hands. The enraged Jashinist roared, apparently about to start digging himself out of the ground with his bare hands while yelling out curses. I'm going to chop off your hand and feed it to you. I'm going to. Not without a head, you're not. Naruto took out a kunai, coated it with wind chakra, and cut the head off the crazed Jashinist. Well then, that should do it. The fuck? How dare you cut off my head, now Kakuzu is going to bitch at me all day. The bodiless head of Hidan roared incensed. It continued spewing profanities until Naruto got fed up and sealed it in a scroll. Why are you sealing it away? Why not just burn him or something? Fu asked. Well, he belongs to a group of S-ranked criminals currently hunting down people like us, so it would be better to take him back to the village to be questioned, the blonde replied, giving her a small smile. People like us? Oh right, sorry, I am a. Hidan. A voice called out. All eyes were drawn to its source as Kakuzu entered the clearing, the Jinchuriki's eyes turning to him. So you're still alive, huh? Where is Jiraiya? The blonde Jinchuriki asked in a dangerous tone. In hell, where is Hidan? Countered the ex-Taki nin. Naruto pointed at the headless body of Hidan still underground and answered with a glare, dead, just like you will be soon. He knew the Kakuzu was lying because he could still sense Jiraiya's chakra, plus, if Kakuzu's appearance was anything to go by, then he must have used some sort of distraction to escape Jiraiya, hoping that he'd find his partner and escape. Kakuzu growled irritably as more tendrils had snaked down the missing nin's back. He had underestimated Jiraiya and lost all his last remaining hearts, and he wasn't planning on losing his last one to this upstart. He was still surprised that Hidan had just been defeated, but now he had to escape before Jiraiya got here because the odds were too heavily stacked against him. Before any more could be said, Kakuzu opened his mouth, channeling 90% of his remaining chakra before spewing a large wave of fire at the pair. Both jumped back before it exploded in front of them, the shockwave pushing both through the air and creating a large smokescreen as they skidded across the ground. Once their line of sight was clear, they saw that the Akatsuki member was gone. Sensing someone else approach, they turned to see Jiraiya drop into the clearing from the treetops. The man's haori and shirt were torn slightly in a few places. He sported scratches on his cheek and there were drops of blood on his shirt, but otherwise, he was okay. Should we go after him? Naruto asked, ready for pursuit. He could sense where the defeated shinobi was, and due to his injuries, he wasn't moving that fast. No need, how did you guys fare over here? The Sannin responded, panting. Once again Naruto pointed at the headless body of Hidan still underground. As you can see, I was too awesome for him. Kinda a bit too brutal, don't you think? Jiraiya frowned as he looked at the body. Well, the bastard wouldn't die out of conventional means, so I chopped his head off. Plus, believe it or not, he's still alive. I just sealed away his head for questioning later, Naruto said as he gave Jiraiya the scroll with Hidan's head in it. I see. Well, congrats on defeating your first S-rank shinobi. The Sannin took the scroll and sealed it in another scroll. With the danger taken care of, all attention was now turned on Fu. Jiraiya asked the girl to identify herself, to which Fu replied with her name, rank, village, and how the Akatsuki members found her. Jiraiya frowned as he listened to the last part. His spies had reported to him that Akatsuki wouldn't move after Jinchuriki for 3 years. It has only been 2.5 years. Could it be possible that he was wrong and the Akatsuki used his spy network to spread false information while they worked in the dark? He wasn't sure about the answer, but if that's what it was, then he needed to warn the other villages, and quickly. Turning back to his student and the Nanabi Jinchuriki, both of whom seemed to be just fine, Naruto had a few abrasions on him, but they weren't of any significance. Compared to him, Naruto seemed to have had the easier battle, so he congratulated himself for the decision to hand Hidan over to them. It seems he overestimated the ex-Otogakure nin after all. On the other hand, while Fu had only taken one small slash to the side as far as cuts go, she had obviously taken quite a few blows herself in her earlier battles with the Akatsuki duo. Though all the Jinchuriki had enhanced healing, only the Kyuubi allowed its host to heal from minor wounds in seconds and critical injuries overnight or in moments when its power was applied. While her injuries had somewhat healed and there were no bruises, it was still apparent she'd suffered some blunt force trauma, though considering the fact that she was still standing, Jiraiya took it as a sign that she was fine. Looks like you two had a tough time of it, Naruto said with a smirk, eyeing Jiraiya. You don't know the half of it, kid. The Sannin replied. Well, at least your opponent was capable of more than just taijutsu, stupid curses and useless monologues. Naruto complained. He expected a battle for his survival, and all he got was a sadistic maniac who wasn't even Guy Sensei level of taijutsu, though he quickly frowned as he thought about it. I get the feeling that guy wasn't particularly high up on the food chain in their group. He was probably the weakest one, seeing as how I easily defeated him, he explained. Probably, Kakuzu was a different beast. If he still had that remaining heart you destroyed, I might have had to use Sage Mode just to defeat him, agreed Jiraiya. I guess, so what now? If these guys have already started hunting down Biju, then we need to warn the other villages. Fortunately, Suna is a couple miles away, so we can go there first and drop the girl there. A few minutes later, both Jinchuriki and Sannin were atop two clones transformed into hawks, Jiraiya on one and the two teens on another as they flew to Suna. So, thanks a lot for saving me, Fu said, giving the blonde a small bow. No problem, those guys were already on my shit list from the beginning, the blonde replied with a grin, now fully facing the dark-skinned girl. You said something about people like us earlier, what did you mean? Right, I'm a Jinchuriki as well. Wait, you're just like me? Fu asked, shocked. Yep, I got the 9 tails, and you? I mean the 7 tails. It has a name? Naruto seemed stunned at that, who in their right mind would start naming tailed beasts. The girl nodded though, yeah, though it likes to be called lucky number 7 and it couldn't sense any Biju in you. It says your chakra can hardly be distinguished from the environment, that's why I was so shocked that you're also a Jinchuriki. Well, that's just a technique I use. Never mind that, it sounds like the two of you have a friendly relationship. Are you the one who named him Chime? The blonde asked. No, he told me his name when I was being trained to use his power, apparently all tailed beasts have names, Fu replied, further shocking the blonde. He has never heard anyone calling the fox any name other than Kyuubi, so he doubted if what the girl said applied to all other beasts. Then again, he recalled when he was battling Gaara and Gamabunta referred to the one tail as Shukaku, the sand spirit. Perhaps they did have names after all, that's something he's gonna have to look into. Hey, can you teach me this technique of yours? You know, the one that conceals the Bijuu's chakra, Fu requested hopefully. Naruto had explained to her who the Akatsuki were and what they after, so she hoped that if she could learn of a way to hide her status as a Jinchuriki, then maybe it would boost her hopes of survival. Sorry, I can't, the blonde replied, though he did feel bad when he saw the disappointed look on the girl. He explained to her why Sage Mode was unique to him and why he couldn't teach it to her, which she accepted but was still disappointed. It seemed her life was anything but lucky after all. Just when Fu thought she had finally created some friends and everything was beginning to look up, she finds out that an organization full of S-rank ninja was after her. Her heart sunk further when she thought of what her village would say if they found out about this. No doubt they would hate her more, claiming that she has brought a curse upon them. She didn't even have her teammates to back her up, though thinking back on it, her teammates wouldn't have been any help either. She sighed sadly, wondering if it would have been better if Akatsuki had taken her after all. Hey, Naruto put a hand on her shoulder, you're not alone in this, we are going to defeat those guys together. You can count on it, the blonde said with determination, hoping it would lift her spirits up. Yeah, hopefully, though beating these guys isn't my only problem. I see, it's your village then. Naruto asked, getting a surprised look from the girl. She wanted to ask how he knew, but then remembered that he was also a Jinchuriki, which meant that he was probably going through the same situation as well, so opted to keep quiet. Does it ever get any better? The Nanabi Jinchuriki finally asked after what seemed like an eternity of silence. She was looking away from Naruto as she asked this question because she didn't want the boy to see her resigned expression. In her heart she knew that though she was asking that question, only a miracle would turn the villagers' views of her. Naruto frowned as he thought of his own situation, he didn't know if his life was better. 3 years ago, he would have definitely said that it was, but now looking back on it, seemed he just wanted to believe what he wanted to believe. I honestly don't know, he finally responded truthfully. But I know that having someone you can talk to helps. Fu only gave a bitter laugh at that, easier said than done. I've been isolated and ostracized by the entire village all my life, and now it's gotten to the point that I've since accepted my fate in Taki, so my only hope of ever having friends is outside the village, like during the Chunin exams. I'm sorry to hear that, but you can always count on me as a friend and fellow Jinchuriki. Maybe we can send letters to each other? Naruto said with a smile as he put a hand on her shoulder. I'd like that, said Fu, returning the smile. You know, this really is a small world, you are already the second Jinchuriki I've met, and as soon as we reach Suna, I will introduce you to the first, the blonde said with a grin. Really, who is he? Fu asked, obviously excited with opportunity to make a new friend and a fellow Jinchuriki as well. He was a crazed maniac at first, he believed that only killing people would prove his existence to the world, but after our battle he mellowed out. The blonde said fondly, I know, I'm kinda excited to see him after so long, I'm interested in seeing what he's doing these days. Wait a minute, Gaara. As in the Kazuki-age? 00. Gaara is the Kazuki-age. The hell? Of Kakuzu. Kakuzu was running through the woods with an angry look on him, he has truly never been this incensed in his entire life. First he loses 4 of his hearts, his stupid partner somehow gets himself killed, which he found to be quite ironic considering the Jashinist was self-proclaimed immortal, and now here he was, still looking for a heart to restock. Honestly at this point, it didn't even matter if he run into some weakling, all he wanted was a heart. His mood darkened further when he heard a voice requesting his presence through the Akatsuki ring. It seemed the leader was somehow aware that Hidan had died, which got him to question what else could be done through the ring other than communicating and locating someone. None of that matters now, he thought as continued hopping on trees. He didn't have the time or patience to deal with Akatsuki right now. Honestly, you would think being so close to a major village I'd run into some ninja, the Ronin thought with a growl. When reached the Suna desert, the Akatsuki member run into quite possibly the worst ninja he would ever wish of running into in his current state. Ukikuku, such an interesting coincidence to run into an old friend, Kakuzu-kun. The man said in his usual playful yet condescending tone. Very pale skin, golden eyes with slitted pupils, purple markings around his eyes and fang-like teeth. This person needed no introduction at all. Orochimaru, Kakuzu growled back. When it came to Orochimaru, Kakuzu knew that there was no such thing as coincidence. This day just wasn't his day. Orochimaru stood on top of his main summon Manda with a menacing grin plastered on his face and Sasuke and Kabuto on either side of him. What the hell do you want? Kakuzu asked, making sure not to make any unnecessary moves lest he regrets it. How rude, is that any way to treat an old friend? The snake Sannin commented with a fake hurt look. What do you want, Orochimaru? So eager, the Sannin shook his head as he tsk''d resembling the way a parent would act when scolding a child. Well, since you're such in a hurry to die, I'll tell you. Kakuzu narrowed his eyes at that and assumed a defensive position and leaking his killer intent in the process. Still, Orochimaru ignored him or just didn't acknowledge his actions as he continued speaking. You and I are both ambassadors of immortality, Kakuzu-kun, we have our own ways of pursuing it, but the end result is still the same. We both desire to live forever and achieve our own ambitions, and thus we have conditioned our bodies to be able to withstand and match our ambitions. So I thought to myself, what would happen if we merged our bodies into one being? We'd be one step closer to true immortality. What do you say, Kakuzu-kun? Tempting, but I'll have to pass, Kakuzu responded, not really liking where this conversation was going. Ukikuku, but I'm afraid you don't have a choice, the Sannin said, giving a look to Sasuke. Would you please do me the honors, Sasuke-kun? The only warning Kakuzu got was Sasuke appearing in front of him with a sword in hand. Yep. Today really wasn't Kakuzu's day. Suna. No matter how many times Jiraiya and Fu told him, he still couldn't believe it. He wouldn't believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. As soon as they reached the gates of Sunagakure, Naruto took off at top speed for the Kazukiage Tower. He was so excited that he almost run into a dozen people, so decided to take to the rooftops instead. The blonde sage couldn't keep the grin off his face. During the entire training trip, he had always found himself wondering if it was truly possible for the Hidden Leaf Village to look past his Jinchuriki status and finally accept him. He couldn't count the nights he sat up wondering if he would get the chance to settle down and have children who wouldn't be tormented by the village because of him. And now it looks like he finally had the answer. If it was true and Gaara really was Kazukiage, then it really was possible. Just like him, the one-tailed Jinchuriki had been criticized and shunned by the Suna citizens, even his own father had even tried to have him assassinated, and he retaliated by murdering people to prove his own existence, further straining the relationship between village and Jinchuriki. But now, just 2.5 years after Gaara stopped murdering people, he actually managed to earn their admiration and acknowledgement, so much so that they named him Fifth Kazukiage. It really gave him hope. Naruto was so lost in thought that he didn't recall when he reached the cage tower or even run up the stairs, but he just opened the door of the cage office with fervor, ignoring the receptionist's protests, and there he was. Fair skin, green eyes, short, spiky red hair, a kanji for love tattooed on the left part of his forehead, and now wearing cage robes. The now fifth Kazukiage had an irritated look on his face, which quickly turned to shock when he saw who just rudely entered his office. Then Naruto. You bet your ass I am, you're the Kazukiage now. The blonde countered, walking into the office and giving the Riti a hug. Yes I am, Gaara replied with a small smile, though he was surprised with the hug, he couldn't remember the last time anyone has ever done that, and what was more surprising was the fact that Hidan did not move to protect him. I'm sorry, Kazukiage-sama, the receptionist said, giving him a low bow. I tried to stop him, but he just wouldn't stop to listen. It's alright, Naruto is a close friend of mine, the Riti said, waving her away. 3 years later and you're still a handful, he said to the blonde, who merely gave him a foxy grin. Trust me, he's even worse than he was then, Jiraiya quipped from a window, giving the two a smile. Jiraiya-sama. Kazukiage-sama. Gaara nodded in greeting as he took his eyes to Jiraiya's neighbor on the window, a Taki-genin he recognized as Fu. Fu? What are you doing here? Kazukiage-sama, I was attacked on my way to the village by the Akatsuki and Jiraiya-sama, and Naruto-kun saved me, Fu responded respectfully, though she couldn't keep the blush off her face. Akatsuki? Yes, that's why we are here. To warn you about them, Jiraiya answered in a serious tone. Gaara nodded and brought his eyes back to Naruto. He didn't see it at first, but now he could see how his fellow Jinchuriki had grown. He was no longer wearing orange clothing, but black shinobi pants, boots and a dark blue long-sleeved shirt with a black cloak with orange flames at the bottom on top of it all. But what truly caught the young Kage's attention was the power he could feel radiating off the blonde in his eyes. Golden yellow eyes with bar-like pupils and orange markings around them. You've changed, Gaara commented with a raised brow. Oh, you mean my eyes, just a product of my training. I'll tell you all about it when you're done with the perv. I'd like that, Gaara responded with a smile as Naruto and Fu left the room to give Jiraiya and him some privacy. Orochimaru's hideout. Orochimaru couldn't get the grin off his face as he watched Kabuto experiment on an unconscious Kakuzu. The Akatsuki member had put up a good desperate fight for survival, but Sasuke prevailed in the end. He watched fascinated and thoroughly pleased as Kabuto put Kamimuro's heart into the Akatsuki nin, where his stolen hearts would normally be earning a pain groan from the man. Anyone else seeing this would have surely been creeped out, but it only formed goosebumps on his Orochimaru's person. May I ask you a question, Orochimaru-sama? Kabuto asked, his mind still on his work. Ime Kabuto. You've wanted an Uchiha to be your vessel, it's practically the main reason you wanted Sasuke as your apprentice, so why have you suddenly chosen Kakuzu as your next one? Orochimaru chuckled at that, fully expecting the question. To be honest, I've always been interested in Kakuzu's technique, and yes, I still want an Uchiha vessel, but Itachi still remains my primary target, the Sannin said, moving closer to Kabuto as he continued watching on. You see, ever since Sasuke-kun came here I've always known that he wouldn't allow me to get his body unless I forced it with all my power. The boy's a genius, yes, but he's not as smart as he thinks he is. Chances are that he would have betrayed me had after his training was done he finished. So why continue to train him? Kabuto pressed, he was clearly getting even more curious about his master's plans. To hunt down his brother, of course. The snake Sannin said as he started inspecting the blood samples and the data Kabuto was collecting. When we're done with his training I will give him a team and allow him to go after his brother, and when that glorious day comes that they do battle, you and I won't be far away, Kabuto-kun. The day Itachi-kun and Sasuke-kun have their long-awaited battle, I will truly be invincible, Orochimaru stated in a menacing yet determined tone that quickly changed into full-blown maniacal laughter. End chapter. Hidan and Kakuzu are both dead. The commanding yet slightly sexy voice of Pain stated. It was clear that the man was not in a good mood, truthfully speaking he never was, and now it just somehow seemed to get worse, and who could blame him? He had gathered the most dangerous S-rank shinobi in history to bring peace to the world, and then suddenly two of them drops dead before their missions truly begin. Someone was going to pay dearly. All members of the Akatsuki were surprised by the revelation, even Itachi looked quite shocked at that. Even though he would never show it, he felt quite elated that Hidan was actually dead. The one time he was forced to be partners with Jashinist had been the worst mission of his life. He shuddered slightly as the memory resurfaced. The former Anbu had to give a bit of respect to Kakuzu for dealing with Hidan every day since his introduction to the criminal organization. What the hell? An equally surprised Kisame said. He really liked that duo, or, more specifically, he really liked messing with them. The zombie brothers are dead. Quite ironic that the so-called immortals are the first to die, Sasori commented. Who killed them, Leader Sama? Itachi asked, his monotone expression giving nothing away, even though he really was interested in finding out who killed Hidan. It is still unclear, Pain admitted. Though all signs point to Orochimaru. Kakuzu's ring and Orochimaru's Akatsuki ring are at the same location, and I can't sense Hidan's. I'm guessing it's sealed somewhere. Whoa. Toby awed, earning an annoyed expression from everybody except Kisame, who seemed to find the mask-wearing fool to be quite funny. Orochimaru must have gotten super strong to be able to defeat the zombie brothers. So it would seem. The Akatsuki leader agreed. Ever since he left the organization, Orochimaru has always stayed clear of us, but now, all of a sudden, the snake has the audacity to actually attack us. Konan pointed out as she assessed this new situation. He's plotting something big. Nevertheless, such actions will not be tolerated. If he really wants to provoke us, then it must mean that he's at least ready to deal with the consequences. Said Pain, giving every one of the Akatsuki a look before finally deciding. I will go to the Sound Village myself and flush him out. But Naga Pain, wouldn't it be better if Itachi and Kisame went instead? I'm pretty sure Orochimaru is expecting you to hunt him down, and knowing him, he's probably got something up his sleeves. Konan appealed with her last friend, her concern for him clear in her tone. Seriously, she knew very well just how powerful Nagato really was, only a few shinobi could ever hope to touch him, but Orochimaru was a different kind of shinobi. There was a good reason why he was called a once-in-a-lifetime genius in Konoha. This was the same shinobi who attacked Itachi despite the fact that he knew that the odds were stacked against him, went to one of the big five in Suna and killed them, and did it again in Konoha just a few weeks later. When it came to Orochimaru, it didn't matter how powerful you were, the fact remained that if he was actually willing to face you in battle, then that means he definitely had something up his sleeves. It matters not what the snake has planned, I will go, and he shall realize the true power of God. Pain commanded in a tone that invited no objections, and yet. I agree with Konan-san. Itachi said, surprising everyone. Kisame and I are much closer to the Hidden Sound village than you, so we can easily go there and hunt down Orochimaru. The Uchiha criminal was rewarded with looks of astonishment, even Pain raised his brows to signal his surprise. Ever since he joined Akatsuki, Itachi has never volunteered for any mission that would most likely involve battle. It was actually well known within Akatsuki that, despite the violent past of the ex-Anbu, the man himself avoided battle and would most of the time put his opponents in a fetal genjutsu rather than fight them head-on, so why would Itachi volunteer for such a mission when all signs pointed to Orochimaru seemingly being ready for them? While everyone else was pondering about this, for Itachi, the objective was clear. He was going to do everything in his power to avoid any meeting or confrontation between Pain and Sasuke at all possible costs. The very idea of his little brother being so close to Orochimaru filled him with sleepless nights, adding Pain to the equation is something he wouldn't even dare think about. Itachi had no idea how powerful their leader was, but any man capable of controlling a criminal organization of 10s rank shinobi was a man to fear. No. He won't allow this to happen, he was even willing to attack the Akatsuki leader himself in order to protect his brother. So you want to go snake hunting, huh? I like it. Kisame said with an excited grin, his shark-like face lighting up in anticipation. I was kinda pissed that we ran from Jiraiya 3 years ago, now I get another chance to tussle with another Sannin. Not so fast shark boy, I already declared Orochimaru to be my target. So if there's anyone going to sound, it's me. Deidara spoke for the first time. Besides, I've been dying to display my art on a village, only one C3 is enough for such a lousy village, Dead in line, girly, we've already decided. And how many times do I have to tell you that blowing things up isn't art, real art is. Enough. Pain ordered, he wasn't in any mood to deal with stupid arguments. Leader Samatobi's voice was heard as he raised his hand, waiting to be given permission to talk, and Pain nodded. Perhaps I should go to sound. No one is interested in your stupidity, Toby, I'm going to sound, and there's nothing this blue fish can do about it. How about if I cut your legs, eh? True art doesn't need legs, But that's what I'm talking about, Deidara-senpai. Everyone here is so cool and dangerous, so I want to go so that I can become just like you, pretty please. Toby begged childishly, which only served to annoy Deidara all the more. I said shut up Toby. This mission is mine and I'm not going to say it again, enough. Their leader commanded in a dangerously low tone. A few minutes of silence passed as Nagato considered his choices. On one hand, he really wanted to personally search the snake himself and show him what happens when one defied a god, but then again, Itachi and Kisame were also fully capable of doing so. He also had to put Conan's reservations into consideration, no matter how powerful he was, Nagato knew that Orochimaru was too sneaky an individual to not have something up his sleeves. Perhaps he was even doing this to draw out Nagato himself for the Rinnegan, or Itachi for the Sharingan, or even both. And so he decided. Toby, you and Zetsu will search for him. I will give you the exact coordinates of the Akatsuki rings, because it is high time you proved yourself useful to the Akatsuki. Yes. Toby exclaimed obnoxiously, receiving an annoyed look from Deidara. Though I do have to warn you, failure will not be tolerated. The leader warned. Don't worry boss man, we've got this in the bag. Suna. Kankuro was not a good cook, which was quite surprising to Naruto, considering the fact the man wore makeup. He would claim it to be war paint, but considering Suna was not in any war, the blonde still maintained his belief that it was makeup stolen from his sister. Which was another thing he found disheartening to hear that Temari was an even worse cook than both their brothers. No wonder Gaara was once demented. By the way. Where is Temari anyway? I haven't seen her since we came. The blonde asked the two Sabaku brothers as he tried not to grimace from the taste of the food. He was definitely going to a ramen stand after this. She's in Konoha discussing a Chunin exams with the Godame and some other trade business. Gaara responded having already finished his meal. It seems he had gotten used to the atrocious food. Poor Gaara. She will be back in 2 weeks' time though. Kankuro finished with a satisfied smile on him and a hand on his belly. Stupid bastard. Naruto really felt jealous that Jiraiya was somewhere else having a proper meal while doing his research, though it did give him a small smile when he saw Fu also struggling to keep the food down. So, have you made any preparations for the Akatsuki? Yes, traps and battle strategies are being set up as we speak, plus, Master Jiraiya was kind enough to help us create a better seal for the village. Gaara explained. We will not allow the Akatsuki to enter this village, much less get what they're coming after. That's good to hear, we need to put an end to those bastards as soon as possible. Their conversation was halted when a messenger entered the room, delivering a message requesting for Gaara and Kankuro to the council chambers. Excuse us. The two brothers said. No sooner had they disappeared had Naruto stood up as well, and, although he didn't wait for a response, he said to his fellow Jinchuriki, great, let's go to a ramen stand before they come back. 15 minutes later. So what you think of Gaara? Great guy, huh? The blonde asked, mid-slurp, therefore unable to see the blush dawned on Fu's face. Yeah, quite young as well, it is quite inspirational to meet such a young Kage, who also happens to be a Jinchuriki. She answered, getting a grin from her companion. Yeah, it is. He agreed. I guess seeing what he has accomplished finally answers your question, huh? Things can get better for us. Yeah. The girl smiled softly. So, have you gotten in touch with your village? Naruto asked, getting a frown from the girl. Yeah, they're sending a couple of jonin to come and get me, and Kazuki-sama is also going to send his shinobi to escort me, as well. They should be here in 2 weeks' time. She answered, though she really hoped that they never showed up. The few weeks spent outside the village would have been the best moments of her life, barring the Akatsuki attack, of course. She had finally made some friends, felt welcome, and she was actually growing attached to the village hidden in the sand. Nobody gave her eyes of disapproval here, no insults, glares or mistreatment, and a lot of people actually treated her like an honored guest with so much respect because they had spotted her with Gaara in the streets. An Anabi Jinchuriki could only imagine how her life would be like living in such a place. She wanted to plead to her village to allow her to stay in Suna, but she knew that it would be impossible, hell, they might even accuse her of being a traitor for simply suggesting such a thing. You know, constantly worrying about something doesn't really help your state of mind. Naruto commented as he sat down his fifth bowl. I know. I just can't help it. You guys are still hungry. The two heard, and when Fu turned around, she found Gaara staring at them with a raised brow. Well, we are. Tenkuro's cooking sucks. Naruto replied bluntly, not bothering to turn. Is that so? The young Kage asked as he joined them, sitting next to Fu. Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't tried to kill him yet. That actually got the Reed to smile, trust me Uzumaki, if you've ever tasted Tamari's cooking, Kankuro would seem like a gourmet chef. Why not hire a cook? Fu asked curiously. We do have one, Kankuro just likes to cook sometimes. Well, he sucks. Just don't tell him that. The three Jinchuriki spent close to an hour at the ramen stand talking about different topics, and it could have been even longer if one of Jiraiya's agents hadn't disturbed them. Excuse me, Kazuki-sama, Fu-san. Jiraiya-sama has requested for Naruto-kun's presence at the hotel. He didn't say what it was about, but he did say that it was urgent. The middle-aged man said with a bow. Well, I guess that's my K to leave. Let me see what the perv wants. The blonde said, standing up. I'll see you guys tomorrow. With that, he disappeared with a wind vortex sunshine. So Gaara started looking at his fellow Jinchuriki, what do you think of Suna? The girl's face practically lit up at that, Gaara never thought that he could ever hear someone else sound so patriotic about a place that wasn't their home, and he did smile happily when she told him about how welcome she felt in this place. Being a Jinchuriki himself, he understood just how toxic one's own village can be towards you and your state of health, so seeing her happy warmed his heart. I'm really glad you like it. He told her. Have you had a tour around the village? Not really, I didn't want to trespass, she responded. Itachi practically everywhere she went was trespassing, whether it was in the streets, the stores, even at the waterfall. The people always made sure to make her feel unwanted, therefore she learned to keep to herself in her own home or training grounds. That way nobody would reprimand her for daring to breathe the same air as them. Old habits, she thought miserably at those memories. Well, perhaps I could show you around. He stood up, his cheeks the slightest shade of pink, though he looked away to hide it. That is if you're not too busy. Fu gave him a smile as she stood up as well, I'd love to, Kazuki-sama. You don't have to be so formal, all my friends can call me Gaara. Friend? Friend? The pair paid for their food and started their walk as they learned more about each other. By the time they were done, neither realized that it was well past midnight. Meanwhile. So, what's up? Naruto asked from the hotel window, having just arrived, though his guard went up as soon as he saw his sensei's serious expression. Is something wrong, Jiraiya? I don't know. You tell me. The older sage responded evenly, his expression as serious as the blonde has ever seen it. Hell, the atmosphere was quite literally cold. I don't understand. I hear the Kazuki is creeping into your girl, care to explain? The Sannin moved closer to the blonde, eyeing Naruto with a penetrative gaze. Yeah, this wasn't creepy at all. What the hell are you talking abo? Naruto, I'm serious. What's going on with Fu and Gaara? The Sannin placed both of his hands on the Jinchuriki's shoulder, his face 5 inches away. The blonde could practically feel the warm air coming out Jiraiya's nose and mouth. But nothing is going on, they're just friends, that's all. Naruto tried to shake his sensei's hands off of him, but his grip was too firm. Oh really? What about the long gazes, the subtle flirts, the blushing? The Sannin proceeded to shake Naruto. The blushing, man. That's a dangerous sign right there. The blonde gave his clearly insane sensei a sweat drop expression, which got the said to raise his arms in the air as a sign of frustration. I can't believe this, the Sannin exclaimed. I have taught you many things, Naruto, more than I have ever taught my previous students, but how in the hell have I failed to educate you in the arts of women and seduction, huh? Jiraiya was now kneeling in front of Naruto, both his hands around the blonde's legs and his eyes in the verge of tears. Please, at least tell me you did something with those girls at the brothel. Jiraiya, That's it, I'm a failure. I acknowledge it. First Nagato, then Minato, and now you. I claim to be the greatest teacher, and yet I couldn't even open your eyes to the wonders of the female form. The devastated man cried. Well, technically, the statement wasn't completely correct as Minato was popular with Kunoichi, but still, the man settled down way too early for Jiraiya's tastes. Your only option now is to kidnap Gaara and… Hey. Naruto scowled, clearly hurt that his master thought he was so clueless with women. First of all, Gaara and Fu are just friends, there's nothing going on there. That's what he wants you to think. Jiraiya interjected. Shut up. Secondly, I didn't do anything with those girls because I'm not stupid enough to give my first time to some whore in a brothel. And thirdly, I'm not romantically interested in Fu, alright. If I was, trust me Jiraiya, she'd be mine by now. The Jinchuriki finished smugly. Heh. Jiraiya snorted, that's what you nice guys want to believe, I mean who do you think you attracting with those lines? What's your name? What's your sign? But as soon as you buy that wine, Gaara just creeps up from behind and asks her what her interests are, who she's been with, things that makes her smile, and what numbers to dial. She's gonna be here for a while, and she's gonna call her crew, and he's gonna call his crew, and they can rendezvous at the bar around 2. The pervert breathed heavily when he was finished with his tirade. Hey, the hell are you quoting Biggie Smalls? That doesn't matter, what matters right now is that you've lost another girl to another one of your so-called friends. Okay, this is now becoming stupid. The blonde's hand sat on his forehead signaling his frustration. Is it? I say this is becoming a trend. Next thing you know. Is this why you called me here? Huh? Yeah. Well this, and also the scroll on the table. Jiraiya said, a bit flustered that he actually forgot the real reason he called his student. When Naruto walked to the table and picked up the scroll, what he read gave him the shock of his life. Name? Karin Uzumaki. Age? 16. Gender? Female. Clan? Uzumaki. Rank? NA. Classification? Censor, Medic Nin. Affiliation? Otogakure. There's another one. Naruto couldn't keep the disbelief out of his tone. Yeah. It was real. There was another Uzumaki in this world. He couldn't believe it. Naruto read over the details again just to make sure that he hadn't misread. He had spoken a lot about reviving his clan, bringing back their lost glory, and seeing their insignia on the backs of its members. But his hopes of ever finding another Uzumaki were rather slim. He had always thought that he would have to be put in the Clan Restoration Act to regrow the clan, but now. Maybe this was only the beginning, maybe there were more Uzumaki out there. Surely a few of them would have managed to escape the destruction of Yuzu just like Karin's parents, and if they were, then he would surely find them and bring them home. He looked at the picture on the scroll again. Karin, huh? Well, just give me a few more days, Karin, I'm coming for you. He thought as he looked over the information on her again. Is she Orochimaru's prisoner or subordinate? He asked his sensei. Subordinate. Jiraiya responded seriously before taking a sip of his sake. Reports say that her parents left Yuzu right before it was destroyed and they took refuge in Kusagakure. Nothing much is known from there, but sometime 3 years ago, Orochimaru apparently took some interest in her and her chakra, so he recruited her in his entourage. I see. That was not something Naruto ever wanted or expected to hear, anything that has to do with Orochimaru was just bad news. That man did the vilest of things and anyone linked with him was bound to be messed up. Orochimaru was quite honestly one of the few people that Naruto despised with a passion. His heart sank as he considered the possibility of Karin happily carrying out Orochimaru's distasteful deeds. He didn't want to think of what he might be forced to do if it turned out to be the case. She is currently in charge of Orochimaru's southern hideout, though I'm not quite sure of its exact location. Jiraiya said seriously. We should go. Naruto looked at his master with a pleading expression. This girl is possibly one of the few remaining full-blood Uzumaki, the closest person I could ever have to a relative. Other than your crazy ass, of course. That's all well and good, Naruto, but what if she turns out to be dedicated to Orochimaru like Kabuto? Jiraiya asked, causing a flinch to appear on Naruto's face. Not only that, but what if we find Orochimaru and his lackeys there as well? This could turn out to be a suicide mission, you know. Jiraiya understood just how important this girl was to his student, but they also had to take a lot of things into consideration here. I know. The blonde said, his hands clenching into fists as he also considered the situation. Anything that has to do with Orochimaru has danger written all over it, and I know there's a possibility of facing that snake, but I can't just ignore this. This is the biggest opportunity I have to start reviving my clan, so I. And if she turns out to be an enemy? Jiraiya asked in a hardened tone, their gazes locked on each other. I guess I'll have to do what needs to be done. He answered, though he couldn't find the conviction to back up those words. Could he truly end up killing the only hope for Yuzu's legacy, even if she was too dangerous to be left alive? He didn't know. A few minutes of silence passed before Jiraiya finally said, if we end up falling into a trap. Then we'll reverse summon ourselves to Mount Mayaboku. Please, Jiraiya. Jiraiya finally relented after what seemed like an hour to the blonde. Fine, we'll start off tomorrow morning. We might even make a detour to Kumo to warn them about the Akatsuki. But, I'm cautioning you Naruto, don't put all your hopes in this girl. Naruto's expression lit up. He would have been jumping for joy, but he was now too mature for that. Now, if you excuse me, I would like to enjoy the rest of the night doing my research. The Sannin said before he walked to the window giggling perversely. You know, due to the village's unfavorable location and weather, there is only one hot spring, and the place is always filled with gorgeous babes. He didn't get to complete his sentence before Naruto forcefully kicked him out, breaking the closed window in the process. Order of the Land of Fire. Itachi couldn't help but frown as he looked at the clearing that his partner had just filled with the blood of a hunter nin from the hidden mist. Samahata was blood-stained with Kisame himself having some spots of blood on his Akatsuki cloak. In situations like these, he would always allow the former hidden mist swordsman to deal with it, seeing as the Sharkman was always bloodthirsty. The Uchiha preferred to use Shinjutsu on them, but since his health started deteriorating at a quick pace, he participated in as less battles as he possibly could. Though seeing how Kisame was slaughtering his former comrades, Itachi was almost tempted to ignore the illness. Speaking of his teammate, Itachi's frown deepened as he thought of the past month. Pain had requested Kisame and Kakuzu to go to Amekagure, citing that he needed the two for their large chakra reserves, though for what he didn't say. Itachi had been forced to tolerate Hidan as his temporary partner for over 1 month, and he could honestly say that he really missed Kisame during that period, and his respect for Kakuzu grew immensely. I bet Pain called for Kisame and Kakuzu because he needed help gangbanging that bitch Konan, hahaha. Oh man, I'm so funny. Itachi fiercely shook his head to banish that terrible memory. If he wasn't already scarred from his Anbu days, then the Jashinist would have surely taken it upon himself to do so. The Uchiha liked to think of himself as a pacifist, but during that time he was rather tempted to use Tsukiyomi on the Jashinist and cut apart his body piece by piece. Hell, Itachi would even bet that Hidan was the reason his condition was reaching a critical stage. Hypertension was never good for a sick person. What did worry the ex-Anbu most though, was the fact that Kisame couldn't remember anything after coming back from AIM. Itachi had tried to enter the swordsman's mind, but somehow Kisame's memories were completely blank from the previous month. No barriers, traps, or Jinjutsu trying to protect the memories. But just plain blank. This kind of thing pointed to Madara also getting involved, but he felt he had to erase the memories, and Itachi had no idea why. Was he trying to hide it from him? Did it have something to do with the hidden leaf? Were they working on a different objective while the elemental nations were busy trying to protect their Bijuu? There were too many questions surrounding the Akatsuki at the moment, and very little answers were provided. Itachi couldn't help but fear for the state of the shinobi world. Madara, Pain, Orochimaru, all these people were planning something, and he knew that it would never be good. He wanted to warn Jiraiya, at least, but the Toad Sannin was really good at covering his tracks, and going to the hidden leaf now was not only suspicious, but it was also really dangerous for him, especially considering the state of his health. So, any chance that we might run into your little brother? Kisame asked with a grin, pulling Itachi out of his thoughts. I don't know, but if we do then, it's inevitable that Orochimaru will be with him. The Uchiha responded. Just a few hours ago, Pain had notified them of the Three Tails reformation. 3 years had passed since Itachi killed Yugura, the Mizukage, thereby also killing the Bijuu. Akatsuki had been forced to wait for 3 years for the Bijuu to be reformed so that they could start hunting them down, and apparently they were now assigned with capturing this one, and just so happened to be Odo. Their leader had even taken the time to warn Itachi not to kill it again or else he would suffer the wrath of God. Yeah, right. He thought. The Uchiha wanted to snort at the threat but that was not befitting of an Uchiha. I wonder why he didn't just send Tobi or Madara or whatever the hell he likes to call himself, considering that the damn thing is reforming in Odo. Kisum wondered as he dusted his cloak with his hand. He'll have his hands full searching for Orochimaru, the snake never stays in one place, and if they do find each other, I'm pretty sure it won't be easy to kill him. Itachi once again responded, his mind worrying about his little brother. He hoped Sasuke wouldn't be stupid enough to come between those two. Itachi's eyes narrowed as a swirl appeared before them signaling Tobi's presence. Has he already found Orochimaru? Are you ever going to smile? The masked man asked Itachi, to which he didn't respond. So Kisum gave Obito a curious look using his samahata to point at the masked man. Are we supposed to call you Tobi or Madara when we are alone like this? Obito merely shrugged, not caring either way, his name was forfeit the minute red-eyed. I'm guessing you haven't found Orochimaru yet. Itachi deduced. Obito put his hand in his pockets and took out 2 Akatsuki rings, one for Kakuzu, the other for Orochimaru himself, and a note that read, sorry, I've gone out for a bit. That man is more slippery than we could ever give him credit for. I'm beginning to think he might not even be an Odo. He said as he shook his head. Possibly. Just then, both Itachi and Obito's eyes transformed to Mangekyou, each putting each other in a genjutsu. Itachi found himself in Obito's dimension, and Obito found himself in a world of black and white, yet, somehow, both of them were in the same place, with just 3 meters being the only distance between them. What did you want with Kisum this past month? Itachi asked, not wasting a second. Again, Obito shrugged nonchalantly, something that greatly annoyed Itachi as the masked man answered, nothing much, pain needed his chakra is all. What for? He insisted. To strengthen Akatsuki. The masked man answered, still coy. I searched for Hidan's ring all over Orochimaru's hideouts, but I couldn't find it. Pain himself said he couldn't sense it, so that means Orochimaru was not involved with Hidan's death. So I started wondering you wouldn't have something to do with it, would you, Itachi-kun? Itachi narrowed his eyes at the insinuation. Of course, he would have been more than happy to kill that insane bastard, but what would drive Madara to suspect him? Why do you think it was me? He asked curiously. If it wasn't Orochimaru, then the only possible outcome points at the hidden leaf. We just got intel that Jiraiya is currently in Suna, 25 miles away from where Hidan's ring signal was cut. Coincidence, eh? Obito asked with a tilt of his head. Yes, it was a coincidence. Itachi responded bluntly. 3 years ago, you purposely killed the Mizukage, knowing that he was a Jinchuriki, and then a few months later you disclosed our objectives to Kakashi and Jiraiya. Another coincidence, eh? Itachi's eyebrow twitched at that. What did Madara want him to say? That he was sorry? That he wouldn't do it again? Fuck that. And so he settled for, a bad mistake on my part. Obito simply chucked, well, I guess everybody does make mistakes every once in a while. The masked man stepped closer to Itachi, entering his own dimension. He put his hand on the ex-Anbu's shoulder as their Jinjutsu started to dissolve. All we can do is make sure it never happens again. When the Jinjutsu completely dissolved, Itachi only had to look at the still grinning Kisum to confirm that less than a second had passed in the real world. The Three Tails is south of Otogakure. Obito informed them as a swirl was formed sucking Obito's body in it. Before he completely disappeared, he added, we don't expect any more mistakes. Well, at least this saves us the time of looking everywhere for the damn thing. Kisum said as the two started walking. Jiraiya and Naruto. Adrenaline was not good for Naruto. Jiraiya decided. The blonde was already an over-enthusiastic person supplemented by an endless supply of chakra, so adding more excitement to the equation was pretty much dangerous for him and everyone else involved. At the break of dawn, the young sage woke him up and pretty much pushed him to get himself ready for their trip to Odo, having already done so himself. They said their goodbyes to the Kazukiya Jinfu before the day could properly start, forcing Naruto to explain to the young Kage why he was leaving so abruptly, though he did wish him good fortunes, as he was able to understand why going to Otogakure was so important for the Uzumaki. He was almost tempted to force the blonde to question Gaara about his friendship with Fu, but he thought better of it. What annoyed Jiraiya the most though was that the little shit was in such a hurry that he didn't even give him any chance to do some final research on the beautiful ladies of Suna before Naruto quickly summoned a clone, transformed it into a falcon, and started flying at top speeds. They have been traveling at over 150 miles per hour since then, which was pretty ridiculous just thinking about. At this rate, they were going to be in Otogakure in just under 2 days. Jiraiya couldn't even remember when they passed the desert, all he could think about was to making sure not to fall off the transformed clone. You have to be so damn fast. he asked, his words barely even heard due to the strong winds in the air smashing them in the face as they flew on. I'm sorry, Pervisage, but if this girl truly exists, then Orochimaru is the last person she should be near. She's my family and quite possibly the only hope I may have of meeting a full-blooded Uzumaki. The blonde turned his head to his master as he responded. Just don't let your guard down, spending any sort of time with the current Orochimaru is bound to get you messed up and you don't want to give this girl any chance to put a kunai in you simply because you're too trusting for your own good. The Toad Sannin advised his charge. The last thing you need is more betrayals, Naruto. He thought solemnly. Got it? Naruto shouted back with a grin, all without a clue of his master's thoughts. By the way, do you know that earth-style jutsu Kakuzu used to block my attack? Yeah, it's called the Iron Skin. Why? Well, I'd really like to learn it. You know, sparring with Gaara just showed how much I could benefit from having a defensive jutsu. Naruto responded. The jutsu itself may not be perfect, being vulnerable to lightning and all, I really like the concept of it and it could still really be useful. I see. Jiraiya agreed, being able to see the merits in it. But, unfortunately, I don't know how to execute the jutsu itself. Sorry, kid. Oh, well. I guess I'll just have to look for one then. Perhaps the toads have one. Perhaps you could create one yourself. You already have the chakra, the Fuinjutsu, and already a good idea of what you want. The Sannin suggested. Minato created a barrier jutsu that could not only absorb a tail beast bomb, but also relaunch it back to the Bijuu itself. The Toad Sannin smiled, remembering his late student. He had been fortunate and sometimes unfortunate to come across some genius shinobi over the years. Hiruzen, Orochimaru, Nagato, Kakashi, Itachi and Hanzo, just to name a few, but Minato was a different breed of genius. A little boy armed with no Dojutsu, Kekkei Genkai, powerful clan, or any other special abilities other than the desire to learn, the will to surpass his predecessors, and a creative streak a mile wide. Minato wasn't the kind of student to just absorb what he was being taught like a sponge, but he was the kind that absorbed the lessons and reproduced bigger and better things. He was one of the very few that even the likes of Orochimaru admitted to being inferior in terms of natural ability. He remembered the time where the Snake Sannin wanted to train Minato. He saw just how talented the boy was. But now, looking at how his one-time best friend had turned out, Jiraiya was really glad that he acted faster than him. As a peace-loving man, Minato still killed over 1,000 shinobi and brought an entire major village to its knees. The Toad Sannin dreaded to think what kind of destruction Minato would have caused if he had ended up in Orochimaru's hands. Dad was pretty amazing, huh? You have no idea, kid. You have no idea. Jiraiya found his ability to speak hampered when a fly flew straight into his mouth, causing the self-proclaimed super pervert a coughing fit as his less than helpful student laughed at him. Orochimaru's hideout. Orochimaru couldn't fully express just how much he loved his life at the moment. He supposed that everyone felt their lives to be precious to them, but with the Snake Sannin, his life was always above everyone else. Ever since he was a child, Hiruzen had spoken much about his genius, often putting him in higher esteem over his other two students. When he finally opened his eyes to the shinobi world, he grew to realize just how vulnerable life was, how vulnerable his precious life was. And so he sought to search for something that mere men had only dreamt about, something that had only been an illusion to most, and a myth to others. Immortality. A lot of people expected him to get things right at the first try due to his reputation, and if he was being honest with himself, he expected it as well. But when he failed, that's where the real fun began for the Sannin. Contrary to popular beliefs, he also respected people who didn't give up. Hell, he was just like that himself. If Orochimaru felt the cause to be worthwhile, then it didn't matter how much time he spent, how many sacrifices he made, or how much of his effort he put into it, he wouldn't stop until he achieved it. And now, finally he could taste it, he would reap the fruits of his labor. He showed a grin when he heard another pain groan coming out of Kakuzu as Kabuto continued operating on him. It wouldn't be long now. He would have a suitable body for him as he awaited the Uchiha battle. The Snake Sannin had been hiding for long enough. He couldn't wait to remind the world just why he was such a feared shinobi, and most of all, he couldn't wait to dance with the Akatsuki. His old companions must be surely looking for him at the moment, and if it wasn't for the fact that he destroyed the seal that Sasori put inside of Kabuto's head, they might have already found him. But very soon though, he would let them find him, and on that day. Orochimaru's thoughts were disturbed when a shinobi appeared next to him. He quickly recognized said shinobi to be Fu Yamanaka, one of Danzo's most trusted pawns. The man didn't say a word, but just handed over a scroll, and he was a blur as he quickly vanished. Orochimaru couldn't help but widen his grin when he opened the scroll and found the Shinigami masks and classified information about all of Konoha's shinobi, including Anbu, that he asked Fu for. A few weeks ago, Danzo had contacted him again, having formed a new plan to take over Konoha without having to try to assassinate the Hokage. The root leader had requested for help from the Snake Sannin himself, and Orochimaru was more than happy to help, as long as Danzo provided him with everything he asked for, and the Shinigami masks from the Uzumaki temple was one of them. But the masks, he could finally get his hands back, and everything else will be falling into place. The body is ready now, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto informed, fully satisfied with his work. Ah, excellent. The Snake Sannin said, his dark grin somehow getting even wider. And as if things couldn't get any creepier, Sasuke's Kirin roared outside the hideout. Perfect. It seems Sasuke-kun's training is also complete, Kuku. 3 days later. For 3 days, Naruto and Jiraiya have been flying to Otogakure at top speed, only stopping at night for rest, food, and starting off early in the morning again. For 3 stinking days, Jiraiya has been forced to sit atop some clone high in the air and have his ass almost thrown back down due to the ridiculous speed. He fully understood that Naruto was really excited to finally meet another member of his clan, but this was just ridiculous. He would be quite surprised if he wasn't jet-lagged after this. Hey. You think you can slow down a bit? He shouted, putting his hands embarrassingly tight around the blonde's abdomen. We're already in Oto, so there's no need to. I found her. Naruto shouted happily, interrupting his master. What? How's that even possible? You don't even know her chakra signature. Jiraiya said, honestly shocked. It's hard to explain. It's like her chakra is a satellite, constantly searching for other chakra signatures. She doesn't massive chakra reserves, but she is somehow able to spread her chakra evenly across the terrain. Naruto explained, finding himself impressed with such an ability. That's impressive. Jiraiya agreed with his thoughts. It could be why Orochimaru was interested in her. Maybe. And it seems like she has also managed to sense us as well. And even better, I'm not sensing Orochimaru's chakra anywhere near her. Then this will be easier than we thought. Jiraiya grinned, relieved. Yeah, well, it seems she's running away from us, and the blonde stopped before screaming out in frustration and annoyance. Oh, fuck me. What? Has something happened to her? Jiraiya curiously asked, though he only needed one look from the blonde to understand. Akatsuki. Yeah, I can sense another tailed beast about west of here, which is where the 2 Akatsuki members are. Naruto responded with a frown. Karin must have sensed them as well, because she's running the opposite direction at top speed. What are they going to do now? If Karin gets far enough, it's very possible that they might lose her. But then again, this was another chance to take out another team of the notorious criminal organization. Naruto, you. I'll try to send a clone after her. The younger sage interrupted Jiraiya once again. I don't know how powerful she is, but if she's capable of defeating my clone, then we may end up losing her. But still we need to deal with Akatsuki now, before they do any real damage. Jiraiya couldn't help but give a proud smile to the blonde. He was able to recognize the threat posed by Akatsuki and even chose to engage them at the risk of losing the only clanmate he will ever have. Jiraiya put his hand on the blonde's shoulder as a sign of encouragement. You did well. Now we just have to make sure to deal with these bastards quickly. And with that, the 2 Toad Sages went to confront the Akatsuki duo. Though it never occurred to both that there would be adversaries, had also already noticed their presence, until they also a single crow fly past them, its eyes red as the Sharingan. Just then, fire-coated shuriken rushed at them from all directions with great speed. The shuriken would have surely killed them if Naruto hadn't used the enhanced speed of Sage Mode and Jiraiya his experience to their respective advantages. The 2 quickly jumped off the falcon and dispelled the genjutsu. They were about to counter, but soon realized that while they could sense their opponents, they still couldn't see them. The double-layered genjutsu Jiraiya realized. So dexterously done so as not to make it so apparent, the first layer being one masks the user's voice, location and causing a slight shift in the target senses, while the second one only there to supplement on hiding the user's location. No doubt this was Itachi's work. He was the one only member of Akatsuki he was quite sure was capable as such. The Sannin really had to give it to the rogue shinobi. He had fought a lot of genjutsu-type shinobi before, but the skill required to not only put 2S rank shinobi in the same genjutsu, but also make it so that they noticed no changes in their environment was something only a true genius would be capable of. Jiraiya quickly dispelled the genjutsu and was relieved to see Naruto had done so as well, but the relief quickly turned to curses when both master and student found themselves falling into a torrent of water with 5 water sharks waiting for them. Jiraiya never got the chance to shunshin himself out of trouble before the sharks leaped and attacked both Naruto and he, dragging them down to the water, thereby reddening it with blood. Just a few meters away, on a tree branch, sat a grinning Kisame and Itachi who were watching diligently. Hisam tilted his head to the side, grinned still in place as he along with his partner jumped down two on top of the water. That would be very easy, Itachi-san. The former hit-and-miss swordsman said, not really looking at his partner. Itachi gave a small nod nonetheless. Yes, too easy for a Sanin, the Uchiha said, calling out their opponents. The Toad-affiliated shinobi didn't disappoint as just then Itachi widened his eyes when they heard. Sage art. Toad oil. Wind style. Great wind breakthrough. Fire style. Toad flame stream. Hisam. Itachi shouted, but the shark man seemed to be one step ahead as he easily tossed his blade up into the air and weaved through hand signs. Water style. Exploding water shockwave. He threw up gallons upon gallons of water and watched as the rising tidal wave crashed into the wave of flames launched towards them. The two Akatsuki members watched with wide eyes as the water jutsu did nothing to stop the biggest firestorm they have ever seen as it came hurtling towards them. The oil also doubled as a highly powered fuel, stoking the ever-growing fire, burning the oil quickly and hotly. Any other opponent would have been terribly roasted by such a devastating attack, but the Akatsuki members were too experienced and powerful to go down like that. Both quickly shined away right before the flames could reach them. As soon as Itachi reached the ground, Jiraiya was on him with a hard right punch which he blocked. Kisame appeared right behind the Uchiha ready to slice Jiraiya in half, but then got the surprise of his life when he felt a large tongue wrapping itself around his waist. The swordsman was awkwardly pulled towards Naruto with his tongue, the blonde ready to smash a large Rasengan into him, but also got shocked when Samehada absorbed the jutsu instead. Kisame then used the blonde's shock to his advantage by delivering a brutal kick to the gut that sent him flying. While all this was happening, Itachi used his free hand to quickly weave through hand signs, and just as he was about to spit fire on Jiraiya, the Sanin proved just why he was an S-rank shinobi by yanking his hand free from Itachi's grip and spitting glob of mud on the ground, erecting a mud wall that blocked the fireball jutsu. Well, it seems the brat is grown up some, Kisame said, putting his sword on his shoulder as he appeared behind his partner. He grinned when Naruto did the same with Jiraiya. So, feel like hanging with the big boys, huh? Naruto responded with a low growl, quite annoyed with himself for allowing his shock to get the better of him. He was battling S-rank shinobi, so surprises were always on the card. If stupid mistakes like that were to happen again, it could end up being fatal. Hey, is it just me or is there something different about the brat? You know, other than the fact that he is taller and not wearing retarded colors. Kisame asked, only further annoying the blonde. It seemed Itachi had noticed as well if the raised brow was anything to go by. Yes, it seems Naruto-kun has grown exponentially over the years. The jutsu he's using has only ever been attained by the strongest of shinobi. It's what gave Jiraiya-sama so much fame after all. The Uchiha said, honestly surprised that Jiraiya would teach such a high-level technique to Naruto. But then again, the blonde will be forced to battle against some of the most powerful shinobi in this world, so maybe it wasn't so surprising. Kisame simply gave Itachi a curious look, obviously waiting for him to explain, not much concerned on their powerful opponents. Those eyes are proof of a dangerous technique, Kisame, Sage Mode. Those that master it get their body, senses, skills and movements heightened to greater degree than what they are normally capable of. The Uchiha explained quietly, even their jutsu are much more dangerous than they would ever be. Ashurama, the god of shinobi and first Hokage, Minato, the yellow flash and fourth Hokage, and Jiraiya, a Sanin. They all managed to attain this technique and all their enemies have found out one thing. That why they try with their might to use nature to their advantage. A true sage becomes nature itself. Impressive, Kisame said, his grin only getting bigger. If what Itachi was saying true, then he was really going to enjoy this battle. Indeed, even more so that he mastered it at such an early age. Itachi agreed. I don't really need to say this, Kisame, but do be careful. It seems Naruto-kun's new skills have some form of resistance to illusions, making it significantly harder for me to put him in a Jinjutsu than I would have expected, plus we mustn't forget Jiraiya as well. Ninjutsu allowed the user to take hold of their target's chakra and use it against them, but with Naruto, it was different due to the nature energy constantly going in and out of him. His Jinjutsu wouldn't last for more than a second unless he used real high-powered ones that bypassed the nature energy and went straight for the Jinchuriki's real chakra like the one he used in the beginning in Tsukiyomi, but the Uchiha wasn't in the right physical condition to do that. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes as he looked at the two criminals. This pair was definitely more dangerous than the last two. In the last battle they had the numerical advantage and Hidan wasn't really that impressive, but this time, things were different. It was a 2-on-2 battle of S-rank shinobi, each just as dangerous as the next. The carnage about to take place was inevitable, but which side was it going to favor? Jiraiya had no idea, but one thing was clear though, Naruto's inexperience with high-level battle was going to play a major part in this. Unlike the last battle, he wasn't going to allow himself to be separated from the blonde, seeing just how powerful their new opponents are. Teamwork remained their best option, but even that didn't guarantee anything because Itachi and Kisame have obviously been partners way longer than he and Naruto have been together. If last battle was Naruto's test against high-level opponents, then this one was going to be a baptism of fire. Suna. It had been 3 years since Itachi had killed the Three Tails. The beast had no doubt reformed by this point, and Sasori and Zetsu had their spy networks working overtime to try and find it. A few days ago, they finally heard some reports that it was reforming in the Hidden Sound, putting the Akatsuki mission back on track. They were free to gather tailed beasts once more. With the threat of a painful death delivered by God himself, should they delay the plan further. Deidara and Sasori decided to be the first ones to capture one of their targets and so had struck out to the Hidden Sand, where they had been informed that the one-tailed Jinchuriki had actually been appointed Kazekage. "Do you have all the clay you'll need?" asked Sasori, almost worriedly, but covered with a mask of calm. "Yeah." Deidara responded. "I've even got some pre-sculpted art ready to go. When I let loose C3, they won't be able to find the village hidden in the sand." Patting his bag for emphasis. "Fine, as long as you're careful. I won't be able to help you up in the sky. I'll make good our escape, but that won't mean anything if you die," chided Sasori. "Alright, I get it," exclaimed Deidara. "Fight the Jinchuriki, don't kill him, get out." "But the Jinchuriki," added Sasori. "That's implied," said Deidara. "I have more than enough clay and I won't need all of it. It's not like he can fly, yeah. This don't take long, you know just how much I hate waiting." "It's good that you feel that way because here you won't have to wait to be buried," Sasori of the Red Sand the two art lovers heard. They didn't have to wonder who the voice belonged to as the Kazekage, Fu and Simjounin landed in front of them ready for battle. "Well, it seems we really don't have to start looking for the Jinchuriki after all, Sasori Dono," the Mad Bomber said, giving the Suna group a predatory grin. "Yes, and look Deidara, we have 2 for the price of 1, Sasori said. "What does Akatsuki want in my village?" Gaara asked, though only out of courtesy more than anything. He knew what they wanted and his village has been preparing itself ever since Jiraiya came to warn them. He also had the Toad Sannin to thank for the improved seal he set up in the village. It spread to the entire Suna desert and was working better than he would have ever expected. Just a few minutes ago, he had been informed that 2 powerful chakra signals had just entered the Suna desert and it wasn't Jiraiya and Naruto, thereby leaving only one possible outcome. Akatsuki. He used his third eye technique in order to confirm, and once he did, Gaara had ordered a level 1 defensive barrier to be activated around the village and ordered both Baki and Kankuro to remain in the village in case the Akatsuki somehow bypassed the barrier and threatened the village's safety in the pursuit of the Biju. He would have wanted to deal with situation himself, but Baki and Kankuro had insisted that he needed backup and Fu had volunteered. Gaara didn't want to risk the girl's life like this, but she convinced him that she is a capable kunoichi able to hold her own, so finally he relented. The young Kage took 5 of the best Jounin and Suna and Fu, then started off to confront the S-ranked criminals. "Hey," Deidara said, taking out some clay from his pouch, "You know, the one tail is known as the weakest of the Biju, but with you being a Kage and all, I really hope you don't disappoint HN. "You don't have to worry about that," Gaara responded as his sand started rising. He may hold the weakest Biju, but Gaara was anything but weak. The fact that he was the youngest Kage proved that point. Plus, the desert was his home ground, the place where he was at his strongest. Born of the desert, warrior of the desert, leader of the desert. He was Gaara of the desert. End chapter. What if Neglected Naruto learns every beast sage mode? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.